네, 여러분 식사는 좀 맛있게 하셨을까요?
Everyone, did you enjoy your lunch? So we are going to start the afternoon session pretty soon. So forum one will be spoken in English. So please use the interpretation service. And channel one is for Korean and two is for English.
2025. For your information, this session will be all in English. So if you need a translation service in Korean, channel 1 is Korean, channel 2 is English. Thank you. And please set your mobile devices to silent mode for the facilitation of today's event. 또 원활하게 오늘 행사 진행이 되고 또 생중계도 잘 진행될 수 있도록 소지하고 계신 전자기기도 잠시만 확인을 해주시고요. 여러분 저희 곧 시작합니다. 시작하실 준비해 주십시오. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we will now commence session 1, forum 1 of a Medical Career 2025. For those of you who are in the lobby, now please make your way to the venue and please be seated. 네, 아직 로비에 계신 분들, 또 이동 중이신 분들이
Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated because we are going to start the Forum 1 pretty soon. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to the Medical Korea 2025. I hope you all had an enjoyable lunch break and welcome back. 네, 여러분 안녕하십니까? 메디컬 코리아 2025 계속해서 인사를 드리겠습니다.
So, did you enjoy your lunch? So, we are going to start this afternoon session Forum 1 of Medical Korea 2025. So, to kick off this Forum 1, and let me announce that this forum will be provided in the language of English. So please set the channel 1 for Korean and 2 for English. And from now on, I'm going to speak in English.
Information, we do provide a simultaneous interpretation service, both Korean and English. Channel 1 is Korean and channel 2 is English. So following the opening ceremony this morning, we're now ready to officially begin Forum 1 of a Medical Korea 2025. So Forum 1 is titled The Future of AI-Powered Personalized Healthcare. So this session is designed to explore the emergence of a new era in personalized healthcare, driven by advancements in medical and information technology. We will delve deeper into the evolving paradigm of global healthcare, also examine its immense potential. And we will explore some applications of AI-powered personalized medicine in the clinical setting and analyze the global healthcare market through various case studies. To offer various insights, we are joined today by distinguished speakers who are at the forefront of the medical tourism and healthcare industries worldwide. So this forum consists of 6 presentations today, and each presentation will be about 20 minutes. After having these informative presentations, we will have a panel discussion. So ladies and gentlemen, please stick to us until the very last moment. And we are very happy and honored to welcome such a distinguished audience here at COEX. Forum 1 of a Medical Korea 2025 is also being streamed live on the official YouTube channel of a Medical Korea as well. So we appreciate your continued interest and engagement, and welcome all of our online participants as well. Then without further ado, let us start Forum 1. Once again, the title of Forum 1 is The Future of AI-Powered Personalized Healthcare. Before we invite our speakers for the presentation to the stage, we would like to have a distinguished speaker who will be delivering a meaningful opening remark. And now please join me in welcoming Mr. Hong Hon-woo, Executive Director of Korea Health Industry Development Institute, and he will be giving us his words of opening. Please welcome him with a big round of applause.
Distinguished guests and healthcare professionals from across the world, Good afternoon. I am Hong Han-gu from the Korea
먼저 이렇게까지
Health
코리아
Industry Development
좋은
Institute.
거울이
First of
핵심
all,
세션 중 하나인 AI 기반
this
대중
session is
맞춤형
one of the
헬스케어 미래
very
포럼에
important sessions of Medical
참석해주신
Korea
모든
2025.
분들께
I sincerely thank all the
또한
participants who are
아프텐
here with us for this
인증에서부터
session, and
그동안
I would like
고생을
to extend my
다져주신
sincere
의사
gratitude
여러분들께
to our
진심으로
presenters and speakers who took their
오늘
precious
이
time to
자리에서
share their
우리는
insights
AI
with
기술
us.
개인
Today,
맞춤형 헬스케어를 어떻게
we will
변화시키고
learn how
있습니까?
AI technology
이와
is
함께
changing
우리가
our
2050년대에
personalized
대해
healthcare,
좀
and we
이야기해보겠습니다.
will have a look at the future
AI는
of
이미
our
거의
healthcare
대세였습니다.
industry.
질문
AI
예측과
is already
조작입니다.
being used in
치료
our field
대책의
of
혁신을 가지고
medical practices,
향후 더욱
bringing about
정밀화
innovations,
개인 맞춤형
and it
의료
will
서비스를
enable more precise,
제공하고 있습니다.
personalized services in the future.
이번 토론에서는
During the forum
알타메드 헬스
today,
서비스의
from
책임진
Ultimate Health
박사님,
Service, Dr.
필사를
Eric
위해서
Lee
AI가
will
어떻게
share with
바뀌는
us his
어떤
insights into the future and present of AI-based personalized healthcare.
경희대학교 이상열
And Professor Lee
교수님께서
Sang-yeol from Kyunghee
고령자
University
관리를 위한
will explain
디지털 헬스와
about
인공지능의
diabetes
역할을
cases for daily
공유하겠습니다.
application of AI-based digital
또한
health.
넥스트메드
And from
헬스의
NextMed
한의대 교수
Health, we
박사님,
have Dr. Daniel
디지털
Kraft,
헬스팀
who will explain
만들어갈 미래
about the
보건의료
blueprint for the
센터를
AI and digitally enabled
이야기하도록
future of health
하겠습니다.
and
이와
medicine.
함께
We
연세대학교
are also
정재호
joined by
교수님이
Professor Chung Jae-ho from
양자
Yonsei University, who
헬스케어의
will
가치를
make a
혁신을
presentation
얘기해
about
주십니다.
quantum computing in life
삼성
science and
의료센터
healthcare.
정명진 교관님,
And Mr. Chung
이런
Myung-jin, the
분야에서
director of Samsung
대면
Medical
언어
Center,
모델이
will
어떤 역할을 하게 되었는지
explain about the roles and
말씀드리겠습니다.
impact of generative AI
마지막으로
in healthcare. Last but not least, we
휴메트릭스의
have
베티나
Bettina
엑스퍼트
Axberton, the president and
AI
CEO
기반
of Humetrix,
글로벌
who will
커뮤니케이션
explain
플랫폼
about how
외국인
the global health
환자들에게 어떻게
communication platform
안전하고
based on AI
신뢰할 수 있는
will
의료
ensure
서비스를
safe
제공할 수
and
있는지
trustworthy
알려주십시오.
healthcare services for foreign patients.
다시 한번 이 자리에서
Let me
참석해주신
thank
여러분을
all the
진심으로
attendees again
고맙다
for being here with us,
드립니다.
and I wish all of you and your family health and happiness.
Round of applause. Thank you. Thank you once again for those invaluable words to set a meaningful tone for the start of today's forum. And ladies and gentlemen, before we invite our speakers to the stage, once again, today we have a rich mix of presenters waiting for you to share their knowledge. So ladies and gentlemen, please be with us both online and offline until the very end. And first and foremost, we'd like to welcome our first presenter, Dr. Eric Lee, Medical Director of Clinical Informatics at Ultimate Health Services, will be our first speaker. And today, his presentation will be on AI in primary care, transforming tomorrow's healthcare today. And ladies and gentlemen, he has journeyed from the United States to share his presentation here at the site. So please join me in welcoming him to the stage with a big round of applause.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for the kind introduction, and I want to thank the Ministry of Health and Welfare as well as the Korean Health Institute of Development, Korean Health Institute at KHIDI for inviting me out here as well out to speak. So, my name is Eric Lee. I am a practicing internist. I am a physician, double board certified in internal medicine and clinical informatics. I have practiced in a number of different settings. I started my career as a hospitalist, taking care of patients inside the hospital that were hospitalized until they were discharged for a few years. I was teaching faculty at several different places before then moving to prison healthcare. I actually took care of patients in a state prison in California for 4 years, and spent the next 6 years implementing an electronic health record system statewide across 35 prisons in California. After that, I then moved to Ultimate Health Services, which is the nation's largest independent, federally qualified health center. And FQHC, which So here's an outline, and I'll talk a little bit more about Ultimate in a second, what I'm going to talk about today. So Ultimate Health Services, we're one of the nation's largest, if not the largest, federally qualified health centers. So we rely on federal government funding to take care of the nation's poor. So 70% of our patients in the United States have Medicaid. I know in Korea there's more of a universal payer, universal health system that treats you regardless of your ability to pay. However, in the United States, it's a very different stratified market, and for those that don't make a whole lot of money, let's put it that way, they qualify for Medicaid insurance, and we take care of those. We take care of those patients. So it's about 3/4 of the patients we care for. Another 20% are not insured at all. They are self-pay or they pay cash. And then the remaining it's a mix of commercial health plans and Medicare. So we've been open for over 55 years now. We have over 50 sites. We have dental clinics, PACE, which is Program for All-Inclusive Care of the Elderly, which takes care of folks that are 55 years or older and have at least one significant life impairment, in which we want our goal to be for them to live independently at home for as long as possible and maintain that quality of life. So they have that dignity and they don't have to move into a skilled nursing facility sooner than later. We also have retail pharmacies and HIV care as well. Here's some of our mission and core values. I'm going to say the mission because I think it's extremely important, and I think it's one of the best mission statements I've ever heard of in my life. To eliminate disparities in healthcare access and outcomes by providing superior quality health and human services through an integrated world-class service delivery system for Latino, multi-ethnic, and underserved communities in Southern California. So again, we care for your wait staff, the landscapers, housewives, those that just can't pay for themselves, the homeless. We care for a lot of these folks. And the reason I'm emphasizing this again is because AI and personalized healthcare, I know, is a theme for today's conference. But how can you personalize this and care for the nation's masses, to care for the rest of the population who doesn't have access to technology, who has to deal with a digital equity or a health equity issues, and they have uphill battles and trying to figure out how to use technology, how to sign up for appointments, how to sign up for getting the COVID vaccine in 2021. I was having a great conversation with Benita Experton this morning, and she'll talk about this as well. But COVID vaccination back in 2021, there were significant issues with our patient population and trying to get them the vaccine. And you couldn't just offer it first come, first serve, because everyone would just sign up that had a phone, that knew exactly how to navigate a website. That is something that we have to deal with on top of all the other work that most everyone else in terms of well-funded health systems can scale. So I'm going to talk about how we've done it for primary care and still try to personalize this and care for our challenging patient population that has a lot of social challenges as well. So before I begin, I wanted to show the hype cycle, the Gartner hype cycle, and the S-curve, which is for adoption. And I want you to take note of this hype cycle again, right? There's technology trigger, right? There's the technology trigger, there's a peak of inflated expectations, there's a trough of disillusionment, slope of enlightenment, and a plateau of productivity. And I want you to think about where we are with the use of AI, generative AI, as I'm talking about our different tools that we're using as it applies to primary care, and then I'll ask you guys again at the end of my talk. So I'm a big believer in discussing 3 concepts at a time, because it's hard to remember beyond 3 examples or 3 use cases of what happens. There's a lot more that I was thinking about. How many examples could I talk about, or what else could I talk about? But I wanted to narrow it down to 3, but just that's a qualifier, or just keep in mind that there are more than 3 examples of how we're using AI currently. Does anyone know what this picture is? Has anyone seen this picture before? Anyone? Okay. So this is a picture from 2011. It was drawn by a 7-year-old girl in Rhode Island. And she drew this picture because she was drawing for her mom what she thought a doctor's visit was like. And this is her depiction of it. This is her, the 7-year-old girl, and her family. And over here in the corner, there's the doctor, sitting in an office chair, and what is he looking at? He's working on the computer with his back to the patient. This is still how a lot of healthcare in the United States happens today. Because we have moved and adopted electronic health record systems. You know, there's a 95% adoption rate in the United States, as Dr. Erskine mentioned earlier in the keynote address. And with that 95% adoption, it comes at a cost of how much am I looking at you when you're here to see me in the office. A lot of doctors, and you probably have experienced this yourself, they may just kind of look down, write a couple lines, they're buried in the computer typing away, and then they just kind of say, okay, bye. And they leave. And most of the time was spent documenting in the computer. And this is a problem, right? I mean, do you feel like you get what you needed out of a doctor's visit? In the United States, we're asking our doctors to do more and more, yet you have to maintain the patient experience scores, or you're asked to make sure that the patient satisfaction continues to stay steady or increase. And it's hard to do that when we're asking them to do more within the computer system. So with that context, I wanted to talk about ambient clinical voice. So what has evolutionized in the US over the last couple of decades, as you all know, is that there would be direct speech to text. People would dictate. They would use a dictaphone or their phone itself or a microphone attached to a workstation. And they would just dictate exactly what they wanted to document. In the United States, we have really long notes. If you didn't document it, it didn't happen. So the quality of care is incumbent on how much you document, not what you actually did and say, I need you to get these tests done and this procedure done. And that can take place in 2 minutes in a simple conversation, as opposed to how much stuff do I actually have to document in the United States in a note, and make sure I order all the right tests, and justify everything with a well-reasoned explanation of why I need to do all this stuff. So there's a really disparate length of note, in the United States compared to the rest of the world. Here, obviously, there's ambient clinical voice, where you can actually just have a phone out, you get the patient's permission to record, I just set the phone down, I'll preface it really quickly by asking them, hey, I'd like to record our conversation using artificial intelligence. It's going to help me remember more of what we talked about, and it's going to allow me to pay more attention to you. Is that okay with you? And the recording is deleted after our visit today. And almost everyone says yes. I've had 2 people say no to me. One was having legal issues, and the other one was a little suspicious and respectfully declined, but everyone else has allowed me to record them. And what ends up happening is that it takes this whole transcript, which you'll see in the lower right-hand corner of this slide. I had to redact or blur it for privacy purposes, but it will separate exactly what the patient says, no matter the language. 50% of our patients have a preferred language that is not English in our health system. 40% speak Spanish. That's their preferred language. And the other 10% is a mix of Russian, Farsi, Arabic, Korean, Mandarin. So we have a very diverse patient population that we have to care for. And the other 50% is English, which is not an issue for us, but how are we going to deal with the other half of the patient population that speak other languages? And what will end up happening is they'll create it into a note. And it's a structured note. And it's not always perfect. I'm here to tell you it's maybe, I think in my mind, 90–95% accurate, but it helped save me at least a couple minutes per note that I have to chart on. And that couple minutes added up over the course of every patient throughout the day is valuable time savings. It also allows me to pay really close attention to them. So I was able to use this technology and pay attention to a patient of mine within the last month. And she had been going to the emergency room twice in the last, it was like a 2-month period. And her symptoms just didn't make sense. She was going in with belly pain, and then she was going in with chest pain, and she's 29 years old. She's too young to be having these sorts of issues. And each time the emergency room doctor ordered a bunch of tests, ordered imaging, and then concluded that, you know, there's nothing that merits you to be admitted to the hospital. And she was discharged home. And then I'm seeing her, and I had to ask her 7 different times, which I would not have been able to do if my face was buried into my computer, because I'm sitting there typing away while I'm trying to pay attention and listen to her. I was able to put the phone down and really look at her and pick up on her body language and her cues and ask her, is everything all right at home? Are you having any issues with your parents? Are you having any issues with your children? What about work? Are you sure you're not having any marital issues? What about finances? Are you having issues with paying off your mortgage or making rent? What about other issues, right? So I kept asking about it. And finally, I had to just tell her, hey, you know, I'm just going to be honest with you. I think there's something going on here that you're not telling me. And just because I've reviewed your hospital records, nothing adds up. I'm like, it just doesn't make sense. You're too young to be having these issues, and I want you to tell me what's really going on. And she finally then opened up and told me. But how many times did I have to ask her? I felt like an attorney asking the same question in a slightly different angle. But ambient clinical voice, people talk about the benefits. Oh, it saves time, it's more efficient, it's all this, right? But it really allowed me to connect with this patient and just pay attention and hone in on her. And that, to me, then allowed me to say, okay, this is the issue, I get it, here's how we can support you, I can refer you to our social worker, I can help you with a counselor and the like. And I was able to reach the end of the visit, and you know what? She hasn't been in the hospital since. But making that, sometimes the hardest diagnosis to make, right, isn't through diagnostic testing. You just need to be able to pay attention to the person across from you and make that connection and ask the right questions and be able to probe. To me, this is a real-life example of how this allows you to be able to do that. Obviously, there's lots of studies of time savings, the improved eye contact. Providers subjectively feel less burned out. So they don't feel like they have to go home at night. They're up at 10, 11 o'clock at night trying to finish out all their notes from earlier in the day. They feel like they're able to just finish charting and go home and have dinner on time with their family. And there's tremendous value in that. So another example, second example I want to talk about is coding. So we have coding solutions where we use when we see our senior patients. We're reimbursed based on how well we diagnose or assign diagnoses. So for example, if I see someone with diabetes who has multiple complications, they have kidney disease, they have nerve damage, they have eye complications or retina complications, there are diagnoses that capture all those elements so that you're coding appropriately at this level, and you're going to be reimbursed appropriately at this level, as opposed to separating them out into like lower level diagnoses, in which the reimbursement is not going to be there. So this is an example of how we use NLP to look at the notes, and it does a preliminary review, and it's 93% accurate in suggesting this actually passes appropriate complexity, or flags 7% of the notes and saying, hey, you got to take a look at this. And we'll have a human in the loop to then look at that note as well as a second reviewer. So this is significant time savings as well for a coding team. Lastly, this is just more, simpler AI, right? It's just using optical character recognition. There's a lot of scanned documents or faxes that we get because not all specialists or hospitals are on the same system. So we have to be able to search written text, free text. We also receive a lot of faxes. So we do need to be able to then scan that technology and route them so they are filed appropriately into the right storage areas or the right sections of the chart. So these are significant time savings as well. These are use cases in the United States that are also happening right now. Patient instructions. So if I see someone and at the end of the visit, I want to say, here's what you need to do next, right? And I want it to summarize everything that I told the patient throughout the visit, and it'll flow into the instructions. I think it does a pretty good job, except I'd like it to be there as I'm talking to the patient so I can review it at the end of the visit rather than having to hit stop and create the note, and I got to wait another minute for it to create the note and put the instructions there. There's an opportunity for it to work better and actually have it there in real time. Second example here I feel like is in the United States, we are very cost conscious on specialist referrals and imaging studies. So everything that you're going to refer for will potentially get reviewed. So now our big health insurance companies are reviewing them with AI, and they're issuing denials. And then we're fighting, the doctors that are receiving these denials or asking for another explanation are now fighting back with using AI to write appeals letters. So it's AI versus AI, right? It's just there's a significant opportunity in which we could actually just hopefully influence while I'm trying to order the referral, hey, you're missing this. Hey, you might want to mention this. Did you do this part of the exam? To actually prompt a really good referral that doesn't get denied to begin with and continue to add to this rat race. And the last thing is summaries. So this is working fairly well for people in the hospital. What we want to work on is looking at outpatient visits. If I last saw you a year ago, I wanted to summarize the care you received 12 to 18 months ago. So there's that issue of like being able, there's an opportunity there in which it can look further back and do a better job at summarizing that. And then just additional opportunities here. So there's an opportunity for, if I say I'm going to order you these tests and these imaging studies or these screenings, these vaccines, it can tee it up and add it so that I don't have to look for the orders and place them. There's that opportunity, right? There's also, like I said, help me with improving the accuracy of my coding. And then figuring out high-risk patients that need, so the highest risk patients or the sickest patients, who's going to be hospitalized first? Who's going to visit the ER first? Right? They're all high risk. You can only concentrate on so many at a time. So can we use AI to actually suggest this patient's going to appear first before this one, so you need to call this patient in first to see them. So there's that opportunity as well. So just asking you again, looking at this, where are we today? And this is my thoughts. I think we're in the trough of disillusionment. There's a lot of companies out there. There's a lot of vendors. Just like 15 years ago when there were a lot of electronic health record systems, now consolidated down to 3. I think the same thing's happening even just with ambient clinical voice. There's a lot of options out there, but there needs to be some consolidation eventually so that we get a little bit more standardization and increased performance. And with that, I wanted to thank you for your time today. Thank you.
Please give a big round of applause. Thank you very much to Dr. Eric Lee. So his presentation shared his valuable insight on AI applications in improving healthcare services. Thank you once again. And our next presentation will be delivered by Professor Lee Sang-yeol from College of Medicine at Kyunghee University. And today his presentation will be on diabetes, digital health, and artificial intelligence. Please welcome him.
네, 안녕하십니까. 방금 소개.
Good afternoon, distinguished guest. I am Lee Sang-yeol from Kyunghee University. I was surprised to receive a request to come here and deliver a lecture. I was a bit worried that I am going to make a presentation here in this world-renowned conference, and it's not impossible for me to speak in English during my lecture, but I decided to speak in Korean to more accurately deliver my lecture, and simultaneous translation is being provided too, and we have more Korean audience here, so I'm going to speak in Korean. The title of my presentation is Diabetes, Digital Health, and Artificial Intelligence. The previous speaker explained about the overall medical services based on AI. I'm going to talk about how AI and digital technologies are being used to handle diseases, including diabetes. We are a bit behind the schedule, so I'm going to quickly make the presentation. This is the agenda of my presentation. This is an excerpt from review article. This is a very good picture that I use often to explain about digital health. Since the smartphone was launched, a lot of sensors have been developed and a lot of data has been transmitted through smartphone. When we first launched a smartphone, it was before 2010 in Korea, and in just 15 years, we have made a tremendous development in smartphones. Many devices were integrated into smartphones, and human beings are using these items for the convenience of our life. And these devices and technologies are being widely used to heal various diseases, including diabetes. From long years ago, I have studied this topic, and I had an opportunity to go to the US to study this. And Scripps Medical Center was the medical center that I visited and studied, where Professor Eric was there as well. And then I published an article like this. This is related to the topic of my presentation. In terms of diabetes and metabolic diseases, we can use digital technologies. And more details are explained in this article, so I'm not going to talk about very details, but I'm going to talk about the importance of preventing diabetes, especially when we looked at the preclinical conditions. And when patients already have progressive diabetes, we have various intervention methodologies and therapies for each stage of the diabetes. And in this area, we can use digital technologies. First of all, I would like to talk about preclinical period and patients who are at the phase of moving on to the progressive diabetes. When we manage chronic diseases, education is very important. If you are not an expert in diabetes, you might not understand very well about this. However, for example, including insulin, we use various medical substances to control the glucose. But in many cases, diabetes patients fail to properly control their glucose by using medicine. So we educated them about how they need to change their lifestyles, how they need to change their diet. And then after educating the patients, there have been improvement in controlling their glucose, especially people who got insulin every day but still fail to control the glucose. They received the education, and after they received the education, many of them improved very much to the extent that they stopped using medications. When iPhone 3G was launched in Korea, I prepared this guideline. This guideline is about understanding and managing
diabetes. And today I am here to talk about how technologies are being used in diabetes. And many of you might have seen very good educational materials on YouTube channels. As you see, YouTube includes both trustworthy content and misinformation. It's difficult to tell the difference between trustworthy content and misinformation. This is why it is important for healthcare professionals to deliver easy to understand health related content to the viewers of the YouTube. The YouTube itself is a for profit channel, but it is also a channel that ordinary people can use to easily upload content and materials. So I thought that if I deliver content related to diabetes to viewers through YouTube, then I can easily get connected to the patients and help them have accurate information about it. This is the material I created before. Recently, many members of diabetes society in Korea cooperated with each other to create this YouTube content. This content is educational material for diabetes patients to help them better manage their disease. And this channel is being subscribed by more than 900,000 people. And we are living in an era flooded with disinformation and misinformation. It is important for healthcare professionals to deliver this accurate information. We provide not just education, but also self-care management. However hard we try to treat the patient, if we have to take care of the patients every day, it will be very difficult. So what's more important for a patient is to conduct self-care, self-management of their diseases. So we provide patients with not just education, but with self-management guidelines so that patients can understand how they could care for themselves. This is self-glucose control or glucose care application. Among diabetes patients, there are many variables you need to consider to promote self-management, and we saw many positive results from that. And we have app-based weight control systems like this. Recently, in Korea, many Korean people created startups in the US and launched diabetes management programs and obesity management programs. And they're using big data consisting of the data about a lot of subjects from 80 countries. So they are using big data containing the information about over 30,000 patients from 80 countries. This is not the outcome that will work perfectly for all patients. This is the system that was selected based on this system is based on a selected number of patients who continuously and faithfully use the application to manage their weight. And we found that the patients who use this app properly successfully reduce their weight. And recently, many research outcomes have been published. One of the published article is that by wearing the wearable device, patients conducted the activities to treat their chronic disease. This is a very interesting study. You might know very well Fitbit. This is activity tracker. And the EMR information was integrated into Fitbit. and risks related to the possible development of disease were identified depending on the amount of activity or the amount of steps of the patients. It will be hard to recognize the letters here, but this information is all contained in the presentation materials, so you can refer to them later. If you exercise well, then it will be good for managing your health. And by tracking the activity of a patient, we can identify the overall amount of activity of the patient and track the risk of potential diseases that could be developed in a certain person. However, it's not that the people have lower risk of chronic disease just because they had many daily steps. However, we were able to confirm that those who had a lot of daily steps had a lower risk of chronic disease. But if people have lower amount of daily activity, they had higher risk of developing chronic disease. GID or arthritis or depressive disorders besides diabetes are called chronic diseases. And for such chronic disease patients, it is important to maintain a certain level of daily activity and steps. Next is glucose monitoring. For diabetes patients, it is not easy to correctly measure and monitor their glucose because they have to prick their finger to measure and control the glucose level. Many patients feel pains when they do that, and many patients said they feel it is uncomfortable to do this. So many patients find it difficult to continuously monitor the glucose. But you can measure glucose level without pricking your finger. Many researchers have studied very hard to find a way to help patients monitor the glucose without pricking their finger. This is one of the studies I conducted, and many people think that this glucose monitoring without finger pricking is a new technology, but that's not it. This article was published in 2007, and I was one of the authors. This article is about the clinical study about a device that helps patients measure glucose level without pricking their finger. On the right side, you will see that the more the dots are in zone B, it means that they're trustworthy results. So this product was launched in 2007. They had not bad accuracy, and I thought that it would be good if such a product is commercialized quickly. But in reality, such a device has not yet successfully commercialized because some patients have sudden change in their glucose level. So this device was not perfectly precise and accurate considering various cases of patients. This is why we have not yet seen successful launch of products like this, and I personally hope that this kind of system will be improved and commercialized in the market. CGM is also a technology that helps us measure blood glucose without painful pricking, finger pricking. As you see on the picture, there is flexible plastic needle. The needle penetrates into your skin and measures glucose. And this plastic needle make patients feel uncomfortable. This is the index and indicators that we doctors see. There are diverse metrics we can use. For example, we check if the patient is maintaining proper or standard level glucose. We see whether the amount of glucose level of a patient is within our target range, and we can provide the proper therapies to the patients. Recently, for people with diabetes and pre-diabetes and obesity, we can use such technologies, but unfortunately, this device, the evidence of this device is based on those who get insulin. Then I'm going to talk about how we could use the technologies. One is digital pen. People who are treated their diabetes with insulin injection can use digital pen as an alternative to the injection. And the digital pen administers the medication to the patients in a phased manner, and it can conduct a very accurate and precise control of the amount of medication administered to the patients for each phase. And it has great potential. And for type 1 diabetes patients or type 2 diabetes patients who already have progressive diabetes can receive solutions like artificial pancreas. There are many devices that could be explored and are studied to treat diabetes, and these are the outcomes of the relevant studies. When we use artificial pancreas technologies, patients can control the level of glucose so that they will not go up too high or fall down too low. And they can also receive the injection of insulin at an optimal level so that they could live their life in a healthy way and in an active way, just like other people without diabetes. Last but not least, I am focusing on AI-based system. As Professor Eric Lee mentioned in the previous session, AI helps us improve the medical services and enhance the conveniences for patients. It helps us learn about new knowledge and create new value. In other words, AI can help us make the better decisions in our healthcare practices. And AI technology is being constantly commercialized. In Korea, the digital medical devices based on AI are being adopted in the market through various efforts. This is a system that our company developed. It is an AI-based fundus imaging reading system. Diabetes patients, when they have suffered the disease for a long time, they have damage in their blood vessel, and the vessels around the eye could become weakened. So this system helps us identify the state of the blood vessels around the fundus of the eyes. And based on the imaging, we can detect and help predict whether their patients have diabetic complications. In addition, we can identify the more accurate state of that person's disease. This was included in an article I published before with other researchers. We took the image of this patient, and based on the age, gender of the patient, And based on whether the person is a smoker or a non-smoker, we were able to detect whether the person has diabetic complications or not. We connected healthcare big data with this fundus imaging system so that we can predict and detect if this patient have any diabetic complications. This is an article I published before. Korean National Health Insurance System has big data, and we provide the citizens with quality health checkup services. So based on the big data, we can predict the stage or level of diabetes among the patients who receive the National Health Insurance health checkup service. The blue line is the existing predictive model. The red line is a more validated prediction model based on artificial intelligence. As you see on the slide, in terms of predicting whether the person will have diabetes within 5 years, it showed a very high level of accuracy. This is one of my recent studies. I'm going to skip them. In the case of EMR, or other information related to patients can be connected to digital technology so that we can predict the state of or the stage of disease of a patient and can even predict when the patient will die. And regarding the use of medications, we can predict the response of a certain patient to a certain medication, and that is included in my current study. Lastly, I would like to make a conclusion. Through randomized controlled trial study, we have to repetitively verify the performance and outcome of this kind of technology. So far, however, the studies we have conducted so far are not sufficient because it is not based on sufficiently large number of subjects. We are seeking to use technologies more to better control and manage diabetes. But it is important that we need a sufficient number of subjects, and we need to design the healthcare service in a better way. And we also need to consider the cost benefit elements. And we are collaborating with many researchers in this study. Recently, we conducted meta-analysis. This study was published in obesity reviews. Many indicators related to diabetes. It seems that in terms of using digital solutions, we have useful indicators, and we need to continue exploring them and make improvement. Thank you very much for your attention.
Proceed. So he just shares some technologies used not only for the prevention of diabetes but also for its treatment. Thank you very much for those meaningful presentation. And now let's move on to our third presentation. We're honored to introduce Daniel Kraft, the founder of NextMed Health and a managing partner at the Digital Health and Continuum Health Ventures. And today he will be delivering his presentation on the topic of a blueprint for the AI and a digitally enabled future of health and medicine. Dr. Kraft couldn't be joining us here in person today, but he has graciously prepared his presentation with a video. So ladies and gentlemen, please draw your attention to the screen.
Hi, it's Dr. Daniel Kraft coming to you from San Francisco, Silicon Valley. And I'm very honored to spend the next 30 minutes or so with you sharing a little bit about a blueprint for the future of health and medicine and what's coming next for all of us, and leveraging the amazing energy you have in South Korea and beyond to think of a better future of healthcare around the planet. I've been lucky to be in South Korea once. I've been to Seoul. It was back in 2019. Sorry I can't be there physically. I'd love to come back again, but I really loved Korea and its energy. And really, it's a great space where a lot of the future of medicine's being created. I actually made this art myself. Of course, I didn't make this art myself. I've been cheating like all of us using GPT and other engines, and it's getting better and better. DALL-E 3 is much better than DALL-E 2, and now we can make videos on demand. For example, with Gemini, I could type out an operating room of the future with robots and a surgeon wearing a virtual reality headset taking place on a space station with a view of Earth, and boom, I have the video right away. Pretty amazing. And it's only been what, 2.25 years since General GPT was released to the world. And the world is moving faster and faster. It's the most quickly adopted technology and certainly has big implications for the future of medicine. In fact, even a year ago, the LLMs were much better than most doctors like myself at passing the medical boards. So, and the disruption is coming from other players now, the DeepMinds and others getting disrupted by DeepSeek. So it's a time of change, right? Each of us is adapting. Patients today are going to Dr. GPT and their families to figure out what might be wrong with their child or with themselves. We're seeing that chatbots can often do better than most clinicians at making diagnostics. So what's the future of the doctor? What's the future of the patient in this new era? So as technology accelerates exponentially, sometimes hard to keep up with socially, regulatory wise, and even how we integrate these into our health systems and beyond is beyond what the technology often enables us to do. So in many cases, the future is coming faster than we think. We're sometimes farther along than we used to be, and it's our opportunity now to rethink that future going forward. Now, of course, the technology today still isn't perfect. It has hallucinations, makes biases, mistakes, and also might have some downsides to our brains, right? There's a famous quote from Sam Altman, the co-founder of OpenAI: GPT is like an e-bike for your mind, which is great, but what if your kids never learn how to ride a regular bike? Or what if a medical student never develops differential diagnoses without the help of a GPT engine? Soon it might be malpractice not to use AI when making a diagnosis. So what are the implications for our brains and our thinking? But like most of you, I'm an optimist. I like to think about not generative AI, but generative health. These sort of new kind of avatrized multimodal agents will be able to match our age, our culture, our language, our personality type, how we want to interact with the world, and match our health goals as well, and give us new ways of having sort of agentic health, always surfing our data, giving us real-time information. And we're just at the beginning of this very exciting era that's going to really change healthcare in many powerful ways. And of course, a lot of that's starting to happen, even with Samsung, with Galaxy AI. It starts to personalize that, discover your own sleep animal, gives you information in your own context. So many folks are starting to build those sorts of systems. So big picture, the future is going to be one that's much more intelligent, much more digitally enabled, of course, more connected and personalized, more precise and hopefully preventative focused. And it means some of this healthcare can be much more democratized and equitable, from rural Korea to rural California to rural Rwanda. And so my charge to all of you is to think, how do we go from where we are now, an era of really sick care based on episodic physical data, one size fits all, to a near future that's true healthcare, continuous, virtualized, physical and virtual combined, that's leveraging AI in smart ways to really, again, help healthcare come to all of us around the planet. So we're being enabled through this, through the advancements of many technologies. It's sort of at their convergence points where that happens. I gave a TED talk several years ago, The Medicine's Future. There's an app for that. And it's really not about any one app, but this ability for technologies to get cheaper, smaller, better, smaller, and less expensive. And when we mash them up, when we can integrate them at that convergence points, we have these new fields that give us the opportunity to solve problems. When I was a Stanford medical student in the 1990s, we didn't have Gen AI or computational biology or low-cost sequencing or telemedicine, really, or robotic surgery or digital therapeutics or CRISPR or virtual reality. These are new tools to reimagine healthcare around the planet. And so I would challenge you to think what's possible today, but more what's going to be possible next 5 and next 10 years, because the next 10 years are going to be incredible. It's also a great time to invest in healthcare. I have a venture fund that invests in seed stage investments. Many of the most amazing new companies are coming from people outside of traditional healthcare who see a healthcare problem they can solve with technology and new mindsets. Now, we don't want to just be practicing sick care. We also want to think about the science and medicine of wellness, right? This idea of not just improving longevity, but health span. So 100 becomes the new 60, right? And we're starting to see the advent of maybe some new technologies that can maybe even start to stop and reverse aging. So stay healthy and enter this new era of restorative medicine. They'll be here in the next 10, 20 years. But recognizing technology is great, it's really those still our social determinants, where we live, our environment, our colleagues, our families that drive most of our health outcomes. And so as we think about this future, we can think about making new change. We've seen lots of business models be disrupted by AI and machine learning and big data. We've certainly seen the COVID pandemic disrupt our lives over the last 5 years. It actually was a bit of a catalyst, right? Things that took 10 years sometimes happen in 10 days in the pandemic. Hopefully we can take some of that energy and move forward in this new sort of health age. Just like Sputnik sparked the space age, COVID sparked some new elements of health and medicine that are helping move things forward faster. So what's coming next as we reimagine this next decade? How do we make a blueprint for integrating AI and digital and machine learning to really improve healthcare? Well, again, it's not about any one technology. It's not about AI or digital. It's about the integration of these new technologies. And not just the technologies by themselves, but understanding how do they integrate into health systems. Because especially in the United States, where I'm coming from, we don't practice evidence-based medicine. We practice reimbursement-based medicine. We're paid to do more procedures, more biopsies for more sick care. We need to start incentivizing wellness and prevention and more healthcare. I've played a role looking at this superconvergence for a while as chair of medicine for a program called Singularity University. I've also built a program called Exponential Medicine, looking at all these exponential technologies coming together. That program is now called Next Med Health. And the magic of Next Med Health and exponential medicine is bringing people from all these different worlds together, from the Eric Topol's on digital health and genomics to Paul Stamets on psychedelics to folks doing robotics and drones and nanotech and mental health, and also changing our mindsets. This is a quote shared by the head of NHS Innovation. Often the difficulty lies not in the new ideas, but in escaping from the old ones. So what old ideas might be holding you or your companies back from the future? So hopefully some of you can join us for Next Med Health. It's coming up in a week and a half. We have some amazing faculty. You can learn more and watch some of the old talks at nextmed.health. And hopefully some of you can join us virtually or in person in San Diego. Okay, what are some things that are moving exponentially and changing quickly? One of them is genomics, right? Many of us have been sequenced. Maybe some of our children have had their genome done. The price of sequencing has dropped at twice the rate of Moore's law, from $10,000 about a decade ago to about $100 today. And that means we can start to use this genetic information for pretty simple things, picking the right drug and the right dose, whether it's a statin or maybe a drug to help us with longevity or to manage diabetes. And soon we're going to start to see, as being done in Genomics England, integrating that genetic information from the research realm into the clinic so clinicians and patients can make sense of that genetic information and use it in real time. We're also going to understand that many diseases are really defined at their genetic level. Type 2 diabetes isn't one disease. It might be at least 3 distinct genetic subtypes defined with AI based on the genetics of that particular individual and their signature for diabetes. So we can manage them much more specifically based on subtype 1 versus subtype 3. Now we're in an era where we can not only just write DNA or read DNA, we can start to write DNA, this idea of synthetic biology, the ability to use CRISPR now to treat often horrible chronic disease like sickle cell disease are now FDA approved. In fact, a colleague of mine, an ICU doctor, recently climbed Mount Kilimanjaro. Wasn't a big deal for him, but he brought with him a friend of his, Jimmy, who actually 5 years ago had sickle cell disease, but was cured using CRISPR-based therapy. So pretty incredible. I got to tell that story to Jennifer Doudna, the Nobel laureate who helped develop CRISPR technologies. Speaking of Nobel Prizes, just last year, the Nobel Prize was awarded to the folks at DeepMind and David Baker for the ability to design proteins. And we're going to see this new era of AI-enabled drug discovery and even personalized cancer vaccines and vaccines against neurologic disorders, kind of all blending from this ability to AI personalized drugs, vaccines, and beyond. So when you're thinking about genomics, don't just think about the genome, right? Now we have the proteome, the exposome, the metabolome, the microbiome, the bugs in our gut and in our bodies that all play a role in our health and disease. And for example, we can now take the proteome and use that to predict who's going to get Parkinson's disease 7 years before they develop the disease. But increasingly, it's not going to be any one ohm. It's going to be the integration, this idea of multimodal health, the ability to integrate this data and make a digital twin, our blueprint for each individual based on that integration of data can give us new insights into prevention, diagnostics, and therapy, whether it's for heart disease or mental health or for a particular patient population. That digital health space is at the era of just starting to accelerate across our communities and health systems. So bottom line, a lot of things are moving very, very quickly. A lot of technologies like our smartphones are moving using Moore's law to compact lots of amazing technology in our pockets or in our smart rings, right? Many technologies that were analog are now becoming digitized, dematerialized, demonetized, and democratized. In fact, what used to fit on your desktop really literally now can fit and integrate into a wearable device. So incredible new ways to rethink many structures of how we do work. And a lot of that healthcare exponentially comes to our smartphone, right? Smartphone has really become a healthcare platform. It's dissolving into our glasses, into our Apple Vision Pros. In the next decade, we'll see it dissolve into our AI-enabled augmented reality contact lenses. It means we're going to be able to bring sort of avatars of any sort to us. We know these avatars aren't real, but we respond to them as if they are. You can design them to match individual people. I can show up as an avatar and program myself to say whatever I want in any language. That's an avatar I can program. These avatars can come to us as nurses or doctors or other forms of clinicians. I don't think we want AI to replace our nurses, but it can take some of the scut work, the repetitive elements that enable then the real human nurses and doctors to do what's best in their human interactions with patients going forward. So we're now entering this time when we're, well past the Google Glass of 10 years ago. Now we have augmented reality, mixed reality. The Google glasses are antique. Now we're going to see these ingrained in our Meta glasses and beyond, and means we can bring new forms of information into the operating room, for example, or to guide a neurosurgeon through a surgical case, or an orthopedic surgeon to be guided step by step through a procedure using the lessons of thousands of surgeons who went before him. I also love lessons in augmented reality from the fighter cockpit world. I'm a pilot. I used to fly in fighter jets. We use heads-up displays in the cockpit. In fact, the old cockpits I used to have were very analog, with paper maps. Now the airplane I fly has a glass cockpit, real-time information, GPS, weather, traffic, what we call situational awareness that doesn't just come to the headset of a fighter cockpit, fighter pilot, but can come to the head and dashboard of a patient, a healthcare system, to make sense of multiple streams of data. In this new augmented reality world, we can also look in the mirror, not just see you of today, but you of tomorrow. If you're working out and doing your exercise, that's you of tomorrow, or you of tomorrow if you keep having donuts for breakfast, or you of tomorrow. So I can see myself now, and I can see myself 100 donuts later. So I only have one donut. Or if you have a patient or a friend who smokes, you can show them you of today, but also you tomorrow if they smoke, before smoking, after smoking. That can be a powerful level for behavior change. Or what happens if they spend too much time on social media? Not so good, right? So the ability to create avatars is becoming quite easy. You can scan yourself and be turned into these elements. And that can give, again, a powerful lever to see our own digital twin and see the implications of our behaviors going forward. So how do we take this forward, right? Virtual reality is another tool. It's very fun to put grandma on a roller coaster, but virtual reality is becoming a new platform across health and medicine to educate, to use as a tool for therapy. Older patients can use virtual reality and visit other parts of the world or help decrease their dementia. We're seeing VR being used to treat pain patients. You go in a virtual environment and use less than half of the pain medicines that are normally used. It can gamify physical therapy and make physical therapy fun and engaging, which is not usually the case. We can use these new forms of augmented reality to bring us mental health in new formats. In this case, the avatar shows up in your room. It can be a virtual psychologist or psychiatrist, always ready to listen and to engage. We can also think about integrating these VR worlds into our video games. Many of us as kids or adults play video games, and now companies has FDA approval to integrate mental health components into video games, both mobile and in virtual reality. Another component of virtual reality is, of course, to train our future workforce. If you're trying to learn anatomy, sometimes it's very difficult. Now you can walk inside that heart and learn the anatomy and physiology and the impact of different interventions. Game changer for medical schools. There's now virtual reality-based simulations. So instead of see one, do one, teach one, you simulate, and you can practice those procedures just like a pilot can train in a flight simulator. And speaking of the operating rooms of the near future, they're all going to be censored, right? They're going to integrate, like the black box from an airplane will be measuring what's happening in the operating room, seeing what's working, what's not working, and helping guide clinical teams through surgical cases. And of course, the robots are coming for the surgical realm. They're getting more and more autonomous. So in many forms, we're going to start to see that we go from regular driving to sort of driver assist to clinician assist to almost full autonomy for surgery and other interventions over the next 10 and 20 years. Of course, a new key part of our future is how do we do better, smarter diagnostics and pick up disease early rather than late? Well, a decade ago, my friend Dr. Albert developed the first EKG on a phone case. Now you see all sorts of versions of EKGs, including some that fit on a credit card that I have in my wallet, right? Pretty incredible that you can have an EKG just in your wallet that's AI driven, can diagnose atrial fibrillation and other conditions. So back to the smartphone a second. What can we do with the smartphone today? Well, today it can be used to look in your child's ear and diagnose an ear infection. The camera on your smartphone can be used to pick up a medical selfie, essentially, and pick up vital signs on demand without any other measurements. All sorts of things can be picked up from the camera now, from pupil reflex to eye tremor to hand tremor. So these are new tools for a medical selfie. And speaking of medical selfies, even the camera on your smartphone can be used as a medical laboratory type device. Instead of bringing your urine to the lab, now with this FDA approved technology, you can dip the urine at home, take a picture with your smartphone, and have the diagnosis of a urinary tract infection or preeclampsia or early kidney disease very low cost and easy to do anywhere by almost anyone with a smartphone. The microphone on your smartphone gives us a new way to look at digital biomarkers for voice, which can predict neurologic diseases, mental health conditions. It can predict, is that sound of your cough a common cold or croup or tuberculosis or COVID? And we can even tell from our voice now if your blood sugar is high. So it's going to be a new form of screening for diabetes, as a small example. So what's interesting about these new sensors and selfies is they can start to measure our behaviors as well, right? And our bad behaviors drive most of our costs and chronic conditions. It's only been about, 15, 16 years since the first Fitbit launched. And now we have these sort of sensors and wearables that can pick up almost every element of our physiology and our behavior. How do we integrate that into clinical care today, right? Samsung is doing an amazing job, some amazing technology out of Korea that's bringing Samsung Health to our smart rings, to our smartwatches, to our mobile devices, and integrating that data going forward and giving you insights into your behaviors like activity and like sleep, or to diagnose a common disorder like atrial fibrillation and help you manage those disorders. So we're entering this era where the sensors are going well beyond our smartwatches. They can even go inside a pill to tell whether a patient's taking their medication. We're going to see the next generation wearables also do real-time blood pressure and real-time blood sugar without taking blood and without a blood pressure cuff. That's going to change medical care. So the Apple Watches, the Samsung watches in 5 or 10 years will, I'm quite sure, do blood pressure and blood sugar as well. There are now new patches on the market, like this one called the BioIntelligence. It's a simple, small patch, but it gives you an intensive care unit level of data and the software to understand what that data means. It means you can admit a patient to home instead of the hospital. Hospital to home is a whole new trend of bringing care to other places, not just the hospital. We're also bringing care to our stomachs. This idea of a Fitbit for the stomach is out there. And now there's even smart pills. This one from ND Addicts is in prototype mode. These are pills the size of a regular pill that you can swallow. I had a chance to do this last week. I swallowed a pill. You can steer it ahead of time in this in the fish tank, but then you swallow the pill, and here I am, literally driving a smart pill in my stomach and getting to have insights about the health of my insides. Pretty incredible technology. Not out in the world yet, but in prototype mode. So there's also patchables that are driven by body movement that have ultrasound devices built in to look at cardiovascular health. There's the earables. I'm wearing some right now. They can, of course, give you hearing context as well as track vital signs and maybe give you AI guidance if you have cognitive issues. There's insidables coming, sensors underneath the skin that will give you 24/7 guidance. Starts with the military world usually, but also will start to blend into managing and tracking chronic disease patients as well, anytime, anywhere. Some of these new sensors are also giving you therapy, the idea of electroceuticals, wearables, and other devices that can not just manage cardiac issues, but be pacemakers for the brain, for the gut, for tremor. So watch the whole era of electricity as medicine. Now back to our Aura Ring or our Samsung Ring. Think about all the technology that shrinks into a pretty small device that we can wear over several days. It can give you amazing insights into your sleep, for example, and we could all, especially me, use some more sleep. But it could also give insight to a woman to let her know she might be pregnant 5 days before home pregnancy test. Or the data from that smart ring or smart watch can indicate if someone has COVID before they know they have COVID, or how they might respond to a COVID booster. So new insights from consumer devices that are moving towards medical as we move forward. Now, these could be simple devices. Someone's going home from a total knee replacement or total hip replacement. When they get home, you can track their steps. Are they doing more and walking more each day as you expect? Or are they walking less each day and they might need an early intervention? And that brings up this idea of a new vital sign, mobility. Can you start to measure the vital sign of a mobility in your patients? Well, you could do that now with an AI-enabled software package like this one. It might give me a bit of a readiness review and my overall movement ability. And if I do have a mobility issue, a stroke or whatever, I can soon strap on an exoskeleton and climb a mountain and have the mobility when I'm 90 as I might have when I'm 30 or 40. Back to diagnostics again. Now with imaging, we have incredible insights at lower price points to examine your entire body, read by an AI radiologist. Now folks are going and getting their full body scans done. Still a bit expensive, still takes about 45 minutes. But the future is using these smaller portable MRI machines. Some of them out of China now are 0.05 Tesla, don't require shielding, and using AI can give you imaging data almost as good as a 5 Tesla MRI machine. So I think in 5, 10 years, you'll be able to go to your corner pharmacy and corner clinic and get a full scan read by the AI radiologist, maybe every year as part of your annual physical. Now, this new form of diagnostic tools can basically fit in your pocket. It can be a smart stethoscope, for example, that can listen to the heart sound and the EKG and do a better job than most cardiologists. It could be these new low-cost portable ultrasounds that replace a $200,000 ultrasound with a $2,000 one, which can democratize diagnostics anywhere on the planet without needing a specialized ultrasonographer in many cases. We're bringing new forms of diagnostics to the world. COVID stimulated a lot of new testing. I helped run an X Prize for fast, frequent, cheap, and easy COVID testing. Those sort of home diagnostics are becoming more normal and have catalyzed new ways of bringing disease detection anywhere, anytime. And what happens big picture now is these tools are democratizing access to health and wellness. In many parts of Asia, for example, India, there's not enough doctors. So many folks have no access. Now with a platform like this one I've helped launch called Jivi.ai, you have an AI-enabled app that you can talk to and helps you diagnose a condition. It might be appendicitis and helps guide you to go and get a lab or to the emergency room. Also, it uses Ayurvedic medicine, speaks to you in Hindi. You can speak in Hindi or English or Spanish and understands you. These are the beginning stages of having a smart AI doctor and health coach with you 24/7. So of course, AI, or I call it IA, intelligence augmentation, is integrated into all of this, right? AI is now enabling us to write our doctor notes instead of having to write them and spend time separate. We can have that written in real time. It's enabling us when we don't have a radiologist to have the Google MedPalm radiology be read for us. That can democratize diagnostics in many parts of the world where there's not a specialist. We're seeing the ability where humans together with the AI radiologists give you the best results. So it's often this combination of clinician with AI gives us the best outcomes. And we're already seeing to market where AI is helping a GI doctor find lesions that might have been missed, let's say during a colonoscopy. So it's a really interesting time to use these tools for diagnostics, for prediction. For example, of course, looking at the back of the retina that can predict who's likely to have a heart attack or stroke or Parkinson's disease. All these are new tools that are just emerging to bring us new forms of insight and information. It can also bring us information from the clinical space. We know about medical errors, who's at risk for a fall, who might be developing sepsis. Is all going to become integrated and given to us earlier, more proactively. Now, when you think about AI, just don't think about the software form, but now physical AI. It's blending quickly with humanoid robots, sometimes humanoid enabled, where you put yourself into the robot. But in many cases, these robots are becoming more and more autonomous. They might help replace a pharmacist. They're also going to play roles in social care. Hopefully they're friendly looking robots. But social robotics can play a role in folks who might be isolated, have social isolation. They might be embedded in your smart pet, a virtual dog that has GPT enabled and is a companion. It also can help an older person who lives by themselves stay safe and respond if there's a fall or other condition. So be ready. This whole new humanoid robotic element is moving very, very quickly, and will have major implications for the future of care, particularly when we have a shortage of clinicians and caregivers. So of course, none of this means we're going to replace doctors or nurses with AI, but the doctors and nurses and health systems using AI will replace those who don't. Now, how do we start to connect these dots today, not wait for the future? One area which is already here is this realm of digital health, the idea of prescribing an app instead of just prescribing a drug or a device. And there's apps for smoking cessation and for mental health and video games, again, to treat children with ADHD. And we're going to use these new tools to integrate the data from our wearables and apps, not just for ourselves, but to our health systems to do smarter health optimization and wellness, to diagnose disease early, and then therapy, which can be much more data driven and feedback looped and optimized. Each of us and our patients will have an integrated wellness score that can give us a bit of a guidance over their overall holistic health. We'll also see that each of us has a bit of our own check engine light, giving us early warning before we have a heart attack or stroke or cancer. And that will kind of, as already happens on our smartwatches today, tell you when you're a little bit off, going to start, in some cases, diagnosing diseases before you have any clue that you might have them. So stage 0 medicine instead of stage 3 diagnosis. And these can be communicated to the patient and their other family members in ways that match who and how they like to receive that information. Now, there's already a lot of digital health solutions out there today, many of them developed in Korea. It's hard to keep track. So I've developed a platform that you can all use today called digital.health. That's the website. If you go to digital.health, we now have over 5,000 companies and solutions where you can search for diagnostic tools. You might be looking for the AliveCore device that might help manage atrial fibrillation, and you can look at the evidence base behind it. You might put it in your own personal formulary or literally prescribe it in a digital bag to your patients. You might be interested in tools that manage diabetes and find tools that are therapeutic and leverage diet and nutrition, and find app platforms like Virta that can be using diet and nutrition and coaching, reversing diabetes. So these are a lot of new tools that are already out there. Go search through digital.health and see what's available. And if you have a technology that's not there, you can add it to the platform. So how do we bring this all together? We now have all these connected devices making all sorts of data, smart homes, Internet of Medical Things. It's too much, right? No doctor or nurse wants more data. What they want is the knowledge and the insights that are actionable that you can do something with. There's waves of new big data, often very siloed and disconnected. We don't want the data. We want the data to turn into new knowledge and insights, but not wait for that knowledge to translate to the clinic over 17 years. We want it to be over 7 minutes and narrow that gap, that implementation gap. So an opportunity for all of us is to go from data to information to knowledge and make that useful in real time, including by crowdsourcing that data. Like many of us are used to driving with Google Maps or Waze. What if we could all start to crowdsource our data if we opt in to share it in smart ways? So we could build Google Maps for health, Waze for health, that would inform all of us from Seoul to San Francisco to Spain. And many of you may have had a ride in a self-driving car. You can almost imagine the future of healthcare being more like a self-driving car. It comes on demand. It knows who you are. It has price transparency. It understands the environment. It adapts to the weather and to the traffic. And is always sort of a learning engine. So how do we see this come together in this future of a blueprint for how we practice care? It's not just going to be virtual care or physical care. It's going to be blended new modalities, digital care. We're going to see our movement from where we are today, intermittent episodic data collected usually in the four walls of the clinic or the hospital that leads to our reactive mindset, waiting for patients to show up with a heart attack or stroke or cancer, to a near future of using continuous data that's personalized, proactive, can happen anytime, anywhere, and deliver better healthcare and better outcomes at lower costs around the planet. And virtual visits won't just be on a screen. We'll first talk to our chatbot that, again, knows us, knows our history, knows our labs and our changing vital signs. It can give us proactive triage before you ever talk to a real human doctor or nurse. And we're entering also the metaverse. We'll interact with patients and clinicians in new interactive, virtualized, mixed reality ways. So that begs the question, what's the future of the medical student? Who do you choose for medical school? Someone starting medical school today won't finish for 7 years in many cases. So how do we train the doctors and nurses not to just good bedside manner, but good webside manner? And how do we train them today to be ready for this new AI-enabled digital future? Because that's where we are. This AI digital enabled future of healthcare is really pretty much here. The trick is how do we integrate it and make it useful? And it's not about any one technology. It's really not about AI or 3D printing or nanotech or genomics or sensors or wearables. It's where they come together, this super convergence, where we have the opportunity to reimagine healthcare to solve challenges, small and large. So my charge to all of you amazing people is to not just think about where we are in today, 2025, which used to be the future, but skate to where we're going to be in 2035, and take that exponential look and plan to integrate this convergence of fast-moving tools and technologies to reimagine healthcare for all of us. So it's time to go from now, intermittent reactive sick care, to a future that's true healthcare, continuous, anywhere, anytime, personalized, lower cost, more accessible, and not to take incremental steps, but to take exponential ones. Because as you've seen at this conference from your friends and your colleagues and what you're hearing, the future is already here. It's just not evenly distributed. It's up to all of us not to just predict that future, but to build it boldly together in Korea, United States, and all around the world. So with that, thank you very much for your time and attention. Let's all build the future of healthcare together. Thank you.
Please give a big round of applause to Dr. Daniel Kraft. Thank you very much for sending your valuable presentation. So, ladies and gentlemen, we will proceed immediately to the fourth presentation without a break. If anyone has any urgent task, please feel free to step out for a moment during the presentation. So now it's time to welcome our next presenter to the stage. We're very honored to welcome Professor Jung Jae-ho from Yonsei University and College of Medicine. And today he will be delivering his presentation on the transformative impact on quantum computing on the life sciences and healthcare. So with that introduction, please join me in welcoming him with a big round of applause.
Thank you for a kind word of introduction. And my job today is to convince you that the disruptive and transformative computational capability of quantum computing can revolutionize the current healthcare toward a more personalized, at the same time, sustainable and affordable. So today we are talking about AI, a lot of AI-centric healthcare and the devices that enable us to do personalized healthcare. But think of AI, the essence of AI is just a complicated computation. So why I looking at quantum computing to beyond the AI-enabled healthcare? And believe me, I'm not a quantum guy, so there is no rocket science or the complex mathematics and equations. So I would like to start off with a couple of numbers here. Some are actually more, the larger the more, the better, and some are smaller, the better. But think of this, every 2 seconds in this planet, someone will die prematurely due to non-communicable disease like cardiovascular disease, diabetes, or respiratory failure, or cancer. And particularly, every 3.15 seconds, someone here will die of cancer. So every human being has dual citizenship, like a kingdom of the well and kingdom of the sick. So, most of us are just would like to abandon the citizenship of kingdom of the sick, but it's not that easy. And among the diseases, the cancer is the invincible dictator of the kingdom of the sick. So in order to fight against this emperor of the all melodies, there have been a lot of efforts internationally, globally, or take an example of the war on cancer. It's the United States, almost 50 years ago, the President Nixon signed on the National Cancer Bill. So with this, the War on Cancer Declaration, a lot of efforts going there to overcome the melody of the cancer. But what happens after 3 decades of this campaign? But unlike the heart disease, like age-adjusted death rate, that is just sharply declined from 600 to 200, but cancer actually remain played as a public enemy number 1. So cancer is a basically genetic disease. So we researchers try to understand the fundamentals of disease, like how the mutation, caused by a lot of environmental factors like smoking and the pollution and the sunlight and the chemicals. But unfortunately, we cannot avoid the things that are intrinsically related to our lives. Like, for example, the cell division and the hereditary factors that is actually run from our family rather than exposed to the harmful environment. So with the advent of the sequencing technology, we all of us witness that now we know every piece of information that composes of us. So with this advantage, the researchers now deep dive into the very fundamental of cancer from the sequence of DNA and the number of the chromosome alteration and whether the gene expression and the DNA alteration after transcription and the protein, even the clinical data. So after the post-genome era we're now living in, any better? But unfortunately, this is data released by the Center for Disease Control of the United States. And actually, the cancer, the death rate, still remain Plato. Why? Do we need more data to generate? Obviously, yes, but it's not all. So data is actually everywhere. So international efforts like PCAWG, ICGC, and Cell Line Encyclopedia, and even just picking up the one specific campaign of cancer molecular characterization of TCGA, actually we generated almost 2.5 petabytes. To put this into perspective, it's equivalent to just 1 petabyte is equivalent to the regular DVDs of 212,000 DVDs. So I think it's not a matter of data. Still, we need more data to, precisely predict the behavior of each and individual patients. But with the data at our hand, we can do more using the upgraded computational power. So think of this. There are a lot of problems that can be calculable. What actually AI does is, if you query some questions to the AI, then they calculate a lot of things. Very complex databases accessed, and they did a lot of calculations, and they provided the most appropriate result to you. So problems can be calculable. So this year, year 2025, marked the centennial of quantum mechanics. Since the German physicist Heisenberg identified the essential law of nature, quantum mechanics, now we celebrated this year as a centennial of quantum mechanics. So let me allow you to walk a bit of quantum literacy. So it's about the scale of the law of nature. So everything we can, sense, recognize is actually the world of the nanometer to the 100 kilometers or larger. But the number goes down toward the size of the atom. Then quantum physics stepped in, and it actually a fundamental theory that describes the details of the behavior of nature at the scale of atoms and at the below of the atoms. So looking at your cell phone, how does it work? Yes, it's an action of an electron. Just like 10 to the minus 15th or 18th, that's how AI and cell phone and any electron device works. So quantum physics can explain how our electronic devices operate. So it's quite diametrically different from the classical and Newtonian physics. So what is quantum then? Quantum is not a name of the matter, like electron, photon, atom, but it's rather a phenomena that happens at the level of, or below level of the atom. So superposition, interference, and entanglement, those three very peculiar behavior of quantum is actually mesmerizing, but at the same time, we just, we cannot understand how the quantum actually happens in our world. So that is why some, renowned physicists also have puzzled with how come the living thing can have two different states at the same time, like being live, being dead. So anyhow, to give you some of the perspectives on quantum mechanics and quantum phenomena, it looks like this. It's a very intuitive way to understand just some of the qubits, how they work. So classical computer, they're using the 0 or 1. It's a binary digit. That is why we call it bits. And it's like an on-off switch. So on or off, there is a two states of the information. On the other hand, the quantum bits or qubits, like a toggle switch, you just move the switch upward or downward. You can just adjust the full or the just absence of the light. So when the toggle switch is just at the middle line, that means the 0 and 1 is superimposed. That means 1 and 0. It's not 1 or 0. So 1 and 0 is a kind of peculiar quantum mechanical phenomena that is actually utilized in quantum computing. So if I show you this slide, it's a so-called Bloch sphere, then actually unlike the classical computing, there are only two states of 0 or 1. Actually, quantum bits have infinite number of states can be expressed and calculated. So in a nutshell, quantum computing harnesses the principles of quantum theory. And actually, we have the 127 qubit quantum computer in our university. And just to give you just a little bit of information related to this 127 qubits, it's like 10 to the power of 39th. And do you know how many number of stars in this universe? It's like 2 by 10 to the power of 23rd. That gives you an idea that how many information can be handled at the same time by this number of qubits. So that is why the quantum computer can provide a lot of computational advantage over classical computing. So it's faster, much faster, and it's also because of the superposition and entanglement, quantum computer can process information in parallel way. But this parallel way is much different from the classical computing, parallel computing, because in classical computing, parallel computing means you just use different many devices at the same time instead of one machine doing the multiple and parallel information processing. So due to this quantum properties of superposition and entanglement, actually it gives more accurate results than the classical computing in certain problems. I emphasize that in certain problems. Not all the problems can be solvable by quantum computing, but if you are smart enough to identify what problems can be calculable or computable by quantum computing, then you are gonna have right devices right tools to solve your problems. So that is why recently the Google's new quantum chip below built supercomputers by 10 septillion years. So it is obvious that which computer we are going to use to solve very complex and complicated problems. So what are the most important advantages of quantum computing? So then the question is how to harness these advantages. So obviously, every aspect of healthcare can be solvable using the quantum computing in conjunction with the classical computing. But for the purpose of this talk, I just touch on the precision medicine and drug research and discovery at the end. So everyone is just talking about the precision medicine, personalized healthcare. But to me, it's just kind of how to identify disease subtypes using biomarkers. It means diabetes of A is different from the diabetes of B. Likewise, cancer of A patient is different from the cancer of B patient. So it is the way we identify what kind of treatment options can be offered to the individual patients based on their characteristics. So what quantum computing do for the precision healthcare? So to me, precision healthcare requires detailed classification of disease, and the quantum computational capabilities can translate this to the real world because they can identify very subtle patterns linked to the cancer subtypes. So here's the question. How many patterns can you recognize? They actually simply, by eyeballing, you can recognize 1, 2, or 3. But if we use the state-of-the-art deep learning or machine learning, they actually identify 3 distinct patterns from the disease gene expression profile data. That means each narrow strip represents a single patient. And the artificial intelligence and deep learning, machine learning, AI, they actually annotate this pattern using the biological explanation that the mesenchymal, proliferative, metabolic. So eyes wide open, you can see that there is a very subtle difference between these 2 columns, even though they are categorized as a metabolic. And again, as I said, this very narrow strip of a column represents each patient, individual patient. So patient A, patient B, they are subtyped as a metabolic subtype, but their gene pattern is different, very subtly. But the thing is, these real patients have diametrically distinct clinical outcomes. Patient A actually has stage 2B gastric cancer, and also the patient B has a stage 2B gastric cancer as well, and also they categorized as a metabolic subtype. So the two patients received exactly the same course of treatment, like a D2 surgery and courses of chemotherapies. But in the end, after 36 months, roughly 3 months later of the treatment, the patients recurred due to the multiple liver metastases. On the other hand, the patient B survived the cancer. So, to realize precision healthcare requires precise and reliable pattern recognition. So, I can tell you that precision medicine is nothing but the classification. We first classify patients precisely based on their characteristics, and then we deliver the most appropriate and personalized and tailored therapy to those patients. So the question is how to identify patterns from such a complex data structure, and that these patterns should be statistically significant, biologically meaningful, and clinically relevant. But here's the problem. So the biomedical big data, they are like multimodal in nature, like genomic, transcriptomic, proteomic, and metabolomics. And clinical data involves a lot of text information like health record and diagnostic imaging and operation record, as you see in the previous speaker's video. So there are a lot of video clips and audios. And they are actually multi-dimensional. A course of dimension still exists here. And by nature, they are non-linear and a very complex data structure. So how quantum can help? As I said, the peculiar nature of the quantum phenomena like superposition, entanglement, and interference can efficiently explore the data structure like this and speed up and optimize the analysis compared with the classical computer. And for example, the quantum kernel method and quantum neural network, that is a quantum version of neural network and the classical kernel method. And actually they recognize the very subtle patterns in nonlinear high-dimensional data spaces. So using these properties, quantum advantage in cancer omics data analysis can be categorized into efficiently analyze the high-dimensional data, and they can model very complex interactions between the multi-omics data, and finally, they can integrate this molecular information with the clinical data. So here are some summarized table, and there is a proof of a concept already done. Like for the sake of time, I'm not going into the genomics and clinical and treatment intervention, but even a single column of diagnostics, disease assessment based on the multi-omic samples and clinical data classification, and the clustering of similar individuals based on their genomic pattern is already around here. So this table showing us that how some of the quantum algorithms are actually being utilized in the study areas like patient classification and the toxicity screening and the image reconstruction and so on and so forth. So quantum computing can harness the massive multimodal information from text to the video and to analyze the more sophisticated way to facilitate the precision healthcare. So I just finish off my talk with a couple of numbers again. So what do you think this number indicate? 3 billion and 5,475 and 4. Actually, these are the numbers in drug development. 3 billion US dollars and 5,475 days, that is equivalent to the 17 years. But these efforts only for 4% of a success rate. And just last year, Pfizer marketed the Vecvest, that is a hemophilia B treatment. But you might notice that a couple of days ago, the Pfizer just withdrew this drug from the market. I think it's best choice for them. But the thing is actually, if you look at the price of the drug, it's just mind-blowing. So 3.5 million US dollars. That is equivalent to 46억 won in Korean. Just a single vial of injection costs 3.5 million US dollars. Are we ready to pay this as a cost of innovation? I don't think so. So there is a R&D paradox exists in this particular drug development industry. So I think it's not affordable and sustainable. Even though we are talking about the AI-enhanced, AI-enabled precision healthcare, still we need the novel therapeutics at the same time. So once we diagnose the patient, once we classify patient into individual characteristics, but still we need a treatment. But there are some way to handle this issue, like repurposing of existing drugs. That can be also calculated by AI and quantum-enabled AI. So we need to think differently, innovative thinking. How to provide this kind of innovative drug to the people without discrimination. That's kind of a democratization of innovation and disruptive technology should be available to all, not for just a few. It's all about computation. So I show you the example of this. This is a real thing related to the protein folding simulation. We witnessed that last year's Nobel Prize goes to the AI in two fields, physics and chemistry. And this is a chemistry field. The contribution of AI is to enhance the drug discovery by facilitating protein folding calculation. But this like a humongous supercomputer actually needs several months of computation just to simulate millisecond of protein folding. But in order to stably identify protein structure, we need microsecond simulation for the protein folding. But in order to identify protein structure with confidence, we need a millisecond time scale simulation. So from microsecond to millisecond is 10 to the 3/4. That means the 1,000 times greater computational resources should be spent to calculate the protein folding in appropriate manner. So also the NIH funded $3.2 million to just provide the computer to the drug developers. Why? They need a kind of GPU computer to simulate the dynamics of biological macromolecules like a protein. So it's all about calculation and computation to identify drug targets and develop new drugs. So Richard Feynman, one of the most celebrity physicists in the 20th century, said that nature isn't classical. So if you want to simulate the nature, you need a quantum mechanical computing. So quantum computer is a naturally simulated quantum system, and like electrons in your cell phone, also the protein structure is determined by the density, behavior, and structure of electron. So for quantum, it is a very natural language. So that is why they just require a short amount of time instead of large computational capabilities. So we are talking about personalized healthcare, and in order to implement or realize the precision and personalized healthcare, we need to know about the DNA. And I think it is my own perspective that the language of life, DNA, and the grammar should be quantum. So computation or AI, either AI and quantum, is a modern-day stethoscope. So to conclude, quantum computing for precision healthcare, it's a kind of new paradigm of computation. We need to rethink of what computation is, and I think and I believe that quantum computing can revolutionize computational capabilities and will help us to implement precision healthcare. So obviously there are a lot of challenges that we have to overcome to fully implement quantum computing in precision healthcare. But I'm not going to detail with these each items. But the last slide, we human beings is going to harness the pinnacle of human intelligence. Quantum computing revolutionize precision healthcare, and it's a true enabling technology for us to advance AI-powered precision healthcare in near future. With that, I'd like to stop here, and thank you very much for your kind attention.
Let's show our appreciation with a warm round of applause. Thank you very much. Thank you, Professor Chung. After listening to his presentation, we look forward to the future where quantum computers accelerate breakthroughs in life science research and also drive innovation in healthcare. And ladies and gentlemen, now let's welcome our fifth presenter to the stage, Dr. Jung Myung-jin, Director of the Data Science Research Institute at the Samsung Medical Center. He will be delivering his presentation on transforming healthcare, the role of large language models. Please welcome him.
네. 네, 안녕하십니까. 삼성서울병원
Hello everyone, I am Jung Myung-jin and I am Director of Samsung Medical Center, and I'm going to speak in Korean. And the previous speaker, Professor Chung Jin-ho, delivered the presentation in English, but please understand I'm going to speak in Korean. So today, my topic is about transforming healthcare and the role of large language models, in short, LLM. What is the difference between humans and animals? So we humans can speak, unlike animals. And the human civilization occurred thanks to our ability to write something. So from the moment our new world developed, and our ability ushered in the civilization, and the same goes to the medical health areas. And by recording the healthcare history, our medical sector significantly improved. And then from 2000, we introduced electronic medical records. So with that, the quality and the quantity of the medical record exponentially grew. And then around 2 years ago, the new type of AI, LLM, emerged. Then what is a LLM? Well, you can think of it as an AI models which can understand human language. And previously, the AIs, they usually understood just paintings or image. And in healthcare areas, the AIs and technologies were used to read imaging. But now, the new version of AI can understand the human language, which is more complex to understand. So now, the AI models can be trained on massive textual corpora to comprehend and generate human language. And three technologies are applied here. First, transformer architecture. This architecture uses an attention mechanism in order to compute word-by-word relevance and also understand the sequence of different words. And secondly, representation learning from large-scale text. Well, supervised training happened before. We trained the AI so many times to distinguish different animals, such as cats or dogs. This way, the AI was able to understand difference between the different animals and distinguish them. But the new type of AI is more advanced version. It's impossible to train all the things because there is a huge volume of data is out there. So new type of AI does not just rely on human supervision or human-driven training. They can learn by themselves. And after the AIs learning something, the huge volume of data by themselves, at the last stage, the humans can do the final review to identify any errors. So the human intervention only happens at very last stage of each learning. So reinforcement learning is the third principle. So there are key strengths of LLMs. First, explanation. Second, summarization. Third, translation. When it comes to explanation, the LLMs can explain diseases and symptoms based on the diagnosis, and they can create the relevant sentences to explain the diseases. For instance, you can ask something to the ChatGPT, and then the ChatGPT would respond the proper treatment to diabetic patients. And these days, when medical professionals give some keywords to the LLMs or technologies, and then they can also provide the relevant explanations too. So it can support the medical professionals when it comes to clinical decision. Secondly, summarization, which can be more practical and useful. And hospitals have to deal with a huge volume of clinical records. Even when patients can have more than 10 years of records. So it's really hard to read all the 10-year or over period of clinical records. So summarization is essential here. So LLM is good at summarizing the clinical records. And meaningful insights can be also drawn from its function. And translation functions are available not just in healthcare, but in all these sectors. And as the speaker mentioned, the translation is possible through the AI because they can help the conversation between the patient and the physicians, whether it be the Korean, Chinese, or Spanish. And let's move on to LLMs, which can be used in healthcare sector especially. Here, what's the most important is the privacy protection issues. Well, at the Samsung hospital, we securely deal with the privacy data. So we use externally non-accessible network. So the Korean government recommends to have the kind of the secured, isolated networks at hospitals. And as you know, Gemini and such technologies, well, there should be the first approach to Google or the technology owner's headquarters. And this is how we can access the information uploaded on OpenAI. We might sound convenient, but here there could be some information leakage issues. And we cannot guarantee the safety of the data when we just leave the management of the data to the hands of OpenAI. That is why there are still some big obstacles in adopting such LLM technologies because of the private protection issues. And the various technologies such as DeepSeek are based on open source model. So open source LLM is not about having the isolated network, but if we have our secured network, and then data will be more securely handled, then what should we do in the future? Well, compared to ChatGPT, this type of LLM might not be effective. So in the US and some countries, the governments are intervening to ensure that that the data is securely handled by companies with regulations. And Naver and LG, some companies in Korea might have negotiations with the government as well. But still, the Korean companies are relying on LLM from other countries, not Korea. So that's a limitation. So maybe Gen AI would be more useful for healthcare-related LLM. And that is developed from MedPalm of Google. And according to the current literature, compared to ChatGPT, this Gen AI is a better performer. And for example, there are many evidence in terms of the medical licensing examination. It showed a better performance. And there are different, the open source, fine-tuned medical LLMs like Llama or Mystery. Foundation models are out there, and they can be brought into companies, and they can go through fine-tuning, and they can work more specifically for the medical sector. And what is instruction fine-tuning? Some hospitals, some manuals, or the literatures or textures can be specifically trained and fine-tuned, and they can be more specifically applied for healthcare. So LLMs are used in largely two sectors, clinical and administrative sector. First, in terms of clinical application, and they can be used for patient education or diagnosis and treatment and others. And let's take a look at some literatures. Compared to large LLMs, this type of smaller LLMs have a pretty good performance. So we can see that the parameter size is not important, but rather the fine-tuning itself is important. But the literature is saying that it doesn't necessarily mean that just training them at hospitals guarantees its performance. What is necessary here is to provide the relevant examples to the small LLMs, and it should go through reinforcement training. That is how we can guarantee its performance, according to the second literature. So small LLMs are quite a good performer. But the thing is, the hallucination issues are there. Well, we can minimize the hallucinations with fine-tuning. However, we cannot guarantee 100% score of the U.S. medical exam, licensing exam. So the score is just 90. So what does it mean? So in order to use it in the field, the supervision is essential. And going beyond the smaller LLMs, we are witnessing various LLMs, such as multimodal LLMs. And AIs can now detect some diseases with X-ray image. So those technologies are already commercialized. And compared to CAD program, these multimodal LLMs might not be a good performer, not yet, but given the current development speed, I do believe that in coming years, they compared to others, the multimodal LLMs can be better performer. And also, it can analyze the vital signs and the genes. So in the future, I do believe the multimodal LLMs would gain more attention because hospitals are now more interested in the cross-disciplinary sector. So the multimodal LLMs will play an important role in terms of the patient the management and research activities as well as education. So I can say that there is a unlimited potential as for multimodal LLMs. So now we should ask a question, how we can better utilize and apply the LLMs in healthcare. And of course, in this process, there should be the proper regulations. And tripod is an academic guidelines. So here you can see tripod AI and tripod LLM. So different guidelines are coming in. And healthcare regulators like FDA have in place AI-related regulations. And according to ATRI's the paper released last year, there are no fixed or the clear regulation about these LLMs. And the thing is, how can we train them and make them work safely? But the thing is, LLM's foundation models, we cannot really identify and validate what kind of models were used for LLMs. So when it comes to LLM regulations, we need to create a new guidelines. And there are around 4 models where LLMs are clinically used. First, using ChatGPT. If you ask something, then you can get a quick answer from it, and there is no way to regulate it. But secondly, the foundation models could be fine-tuned for medical specific or the healthcare specific usage. And here we can introduce regulations. And third, the foundation makers, they can try making the medical field specific AIs. And also the LLMs used at this stage of operations can be divided into 4: counseling, writing, education, and summary. First, in terms of counseling, that is, there could be some the overlaid areas with the chatbot. So this is about giving some training to patients. So for the counseling, we can use an LLM. And second, writing. And LLM is very strong in terms of writing. It can perform summarization, and also before surgery going on, it's necessary to get a surgical consent form from patients. And here there was an analysis comparing the performance of the writing skills between AI and humans. And as a result, the conclusion was that AIs in some areas wrote the surgical consent form better than humans. And third, education or training. Well, clinicians may understand this very well, but it would be really difficult for patients. So if you ask ChatGPT to explain this clearly, then you can get an answer like this. And so for the patients, it would be better materials, and we can help patients to have a better understanding by using the ChatGPT summarization function. And also, we can use this technology to educate our interns or the medical school students as well. And the VR technologies can be used here. And nowadays, we invite some actors to train the kind of operational related skills. But now we can use AIs and technologies. And also the technologists can provide some coachings to the medical school students. And as I mentioned, the summarization is a really useful areas that we can use the LLM. And even over 1 month of record can be summarized into one single page. So at our Samsung hospital, we are trying many things to make the better use of AI. And of course, they haven't been approved by the regulators, so we are just doing some research activities. So we installed this technology in an isolated network. So we installed different models such as Llama 3, Gemma, and others. And different models have different strengths and weaknesses depending on the tasks given. So we are closely watching their performance. And also we can use the technology for smart referral system. And every day, around 200 or 300 the referral requests were received at hospitals. So it's impossible for the physicians to handle all the things. So the nurses should work together. And of course, we do have a lot of skilled nurses. But the thing is, when we have new nurses, they might not have a clear understanding about this referral process. Maybe the new nurses might not know which physicians should be referred. So for the new nurses, we created more than 500 pages of guidelines. So it's really difficult for them to understand everything. So we created a chatbot where the nurses input questions, and then the chatbot can give a clear answer about the referrals, such as it's better to send the patient to the emergency room, or you can just proceed the referral process. And another example is we create LLM-based surgical site infection surveillance system. Colorectal surgeries are being performed around 2,000 cases a year. So it's necessary to documentate all the surgeries. And previously, the human resources like nurses had to do the job, but now we can use the LLMs so that we can reduce the workload for nurses up to around 25%. And lastly, when we get the consent form from the patients, yes, of course, we do have a standard format. But we have to give additional explanations about the surgeries the patients will have. So in the process of Q&A, the medical professionals have to spend more than 30 minutes. But now we don't need to spend such a huge time because we can use an LLM-based chatbot. The chatbot can learn about it previously, and then the patients can be better explained by the chatbot. And then after that, the patients can have unsolved questions to the physicians at the last stage. This way, we can reduce workload. So LLMs are reshaping the future of healthcare, and it will be very useful for our medical healthcare sector.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's now time to welcome our last presenter. It is my honor to welcome Dr. Venita X. Burton, founder and CEO of Humetrix, and today she will be delivering her presentation under the topic of providing safe medical services to foreign patients through an AI-powered global health communication platform. With that, please welcome her with a big round of applause.
Thank you and good afternoon, everyone. I first would like to thank the Ministry of Health and Welfare and the Korean Health Industry Development Institute for convening this wonderful conference. So my focus today, as a physician, scientist, healthcare informatist, founded my company 25 years ago, and we are today a market leader in digital health, is to focus on patient safety and patient safety globally. And I'm very privileged to be here in Korea as you are the hub for global healthcare. In 2000, the Institute of Medicine, now called the National Academy of Medicine, issued a seminal report on patient safety. Incredible numbers. 25 years ago, in the US, over 100,000 patients died in the hospitals because of medical errors. That was more than deaths for motor vehicle accidents or deaths from breast cancer. And the IOM identified in many ways miscommunication issues as the root cause for those medical errors. And their advice was, of course, to use electronic health records, but also to have patients have access to those records, check them for accuracy, and use mobile technology to share critical information when they seek care. So 20 years later, in fact, the situation is not any better. I'm talking about the US to start with. In fact, over 200,000 deaths are caused by medical errors. 400,000 patients every year suffer from harm for medical errors. And globally, the WHO indicates that just the practice of the unsafe practice of medication use lead to 42 billion cost of healthcare system worldwide. This is a real issue when you provide care to foreign patients, either in your own country or here in Korea and elsewhere, when you are providing highly technically competent care to foreign patients coming from all over the world. Huge growth of the medical tourism industry illustrates the need for seeking care away from home at a lower cost but highly skilled care. So those communication issues, which could lead to medical errors, can be indeed enhanced, increase when you have language barriers, when you are away from home to receive that health care. So if we were to look at a typical patient journey in a foreign hospital, communication is key every step of the way, from the day you select the hospital when you want to get to receive that specialty care, to the time when you are admitted to the hospital, when the patient goes through an intake process, all the way to the discharge time, where that care plan, medication prescribed, is provided to you in that foreign language. And then later on, when follow-up care is taking place remotely via telehealth. So to address those foreign language communication-related issues, we rely on interpreter, even those remotely available interpreter, as we have heard today from my co-panelists. But those interpreter-based communication translation modalities have limitation, cost, availability, and also when you talk about medical care, enter another language issue, the medical terminology language, which differ from country to country. At Humetrix, we developed a worldwide medical terminology platform to cross those barriers of terminology, medical terminology across countries. So you have heard compelling evidence from my co-panelists today that AI is transforming healthcare today. It's transformed healthcare from administrative processes to clinical decision-making. But are we making a difference today beyond the use of electronic health record in terms of patient safety? So this is what I'm going to address. So at Umetrix, my company based in San Diego in California, but we provide our solution globally, we developed what we called a global health communication platform. And that platform addressed the very issue I just discussed, issues of language gaps and medical terminology barriers, which our platform intends to resolve. So this platform comprehends a vast suite of various solutions and also end-to-end solution, depending on the use case. Is it provided at the government level? Is it for epidemiologic surveillance at the border? Is it for patient intake using mobile technology on a tablet with real-time translation, text to voice, voice to text, implementations of population health surveillance? We provide that whole range of solutions. Overall, we provide that technology in 26 languages. We developed our own global medication database of 4 million medication, where we can crosswalk, match medication from one country to the next, because as you know, the medication you take in your own country, it delivers under a different name in another country. So a ChatGPT or a Google Translate will not do the trick when you have to convey what medication you take in your own country when you travel abroad. So let me show you a quick video on what we do for what reasons. So speaking of AI, where do we use AI today in that global communication platform? It's used in different places. First of all, we have created a very rich symptom encyclopedia so that when a patient speaks in their own language, what they feel, what their symptom, in their own way, in their own term, in lay terms, we have used AI to augment that common lay-term language to go from common term, lay-term language to actual symptom in a medical terminology way. We use AI to enhance a sophisticated code-based medication matching with a new generative AI, because you will have a hallucination and you don't want an hallucination to find what is the equivalent medication of the one I take at home. For that, we developed our own algorithm, and they are code-based. We use AI to develop algorithm for syndromic surveillance. So we capture those symptoms in various languages for those thousands of millions of patients, and then from then we can deduct what syndrome we may be observing at a specific time. And finally, as you have heard from my colleagues, AI indeed can enable text-to-voice and voice-to-text communication, and we do use that in our platform. Sorry. So I would like to let you know, in images as well, what has been a significant real-world deployment of our technology that was last summer at the Olympic Games. The use case there was to be able to care efficiently, triage in case any one of the 10 million visitors from all over the world, 15 athletes and para-athletes who came to Paris over a period of 6 weeks. And to do that, our technology was deployed. So their specific needs were the following. They needed a solution for rapid triage. For that, our platform, our communicator platform, provide real-time symptom medical condition translation, mentioned to you in 26 languages, and medication matching for over 150 countries and regions in the world. They wanted that technology to be immediately accessible. They didn't want the athletes or the spectator to have to download an app ahead of time. This technology, this communication platform had to be available at the point of care immediately. For that, we had posters with a QR code in every one of the 200 competition sites in Paris and throughout France, as well as in the emergency room of the Paris hospital where those patients could be dispatched. Of course, the solution had to protect individual privacy and provide data security, and for that, no personally identifiable information was stored by biometrics or in the cloud anywhere. Everything was local, it was edge computing. And as I mentioned, I will show you that in image, it was also the technology was to deliver to authority, public health authority and the organizer, real-time situation awareness and epidemiologic surveillance. So this just to illustrate the various competition sites. They were throughout Paris in various known places, museums and so forth, and in main cities in France, even in Tahiti, where they conducted surfing competition. So our technology was available everywhere. On the provider side, so that you had referral hospital in the large Paris Assistance Publique des Hôpitaux de Paris. This is one of the largest hospital network in the world, 47 hospitals, and they had dedicated a hospital to take care of athletes, media, staff, and the general public. That is the map on the left side. On the right side, circled in red, were large hospitals, 1,000-bed hospitals, near the Olympic Village, near the Paris International Airport. In addition to this, our technology was available in a network of 20,000 physician offices throughout the region. So again, a poster at all those point of care competition sites in their first aid station, but also in the emergency room and physician's office. And once that QR code on the poster was scanned by anyone's smartphone, the application, a mobile application, specifically a web application, was opening up in the language of the user for that user to quickly, in a minute or a minute and a half at the most, answer a quick questionnaire for that healthcare provider, paramedic, to triage and care for that individual. So here are a few screenshots of the web application, opening again in the language of the user. So here in English, maybe an American, suffering from various conditions, asked about existing medical condition, any current medication, and allergy to any medication. In total, the application right away generated a health summary on that left screenshot, then in the language of the user. Then when it came to sharing that information to that healthcare provider, there were two ways for that user to do it. Either tapping a button to show directly in the language of the provider, French in this situation, that same summary in French, which you can see on the right. Or the other way was to have that summary transfer mobile to mobile through the use of encrypted QR code containing all the data locally from on the phone of the user, transmitted securely locally to the phone of the provider. And here it worked in Paris last summer. So this is a view of the dashboard we provided to those public health authorities in Paris. And at the end of the day, individuals from 97 countries speaking 22 different languages use the technology. Here's the view of the syndromic surveillance we perform in real time. To the left, the Olympic Games time period, followed by a 2-week break, and then the Paralympic Games. And every color block on this bar graph represents a syndrome. And again, we use AI to go from symptoms to syndrome. And we wanted to alert, indeed, the public health authority if there was any potential COVID surge. There was none. That was respiratory infectious disease in blue, in dark red were trauma. So nothing major, but every 2 hours this information was refreshed to give situation awareness to organizers and hospital administrators. Now, in a different context, when you provide hospital-based care, we talked about one of the key areas where miscommunication can occur is at the intake time, provided by a nurse or a physician. So we have developed technologies just for that, to mimic that real conversation, critical conversation between a patient and a provider, which is going to derive diagnosis and treatment, as we have heard from my co-panelists. So let me show you a couple of those solutions. One is a voice-enabled digital intake form of an American patient being seen in Korea, and the other one is a voice-enabled mobile app, also with an American patient being seen in Korea. The text to voice, translation automated. Here's a form. And here's a mobile app providing the same type of intake, voice enabled. An American patient asked, what symptoms do you suffer from?
In the right knee, and I'm limping.
Voice to text. Any condition you suffer from?
I suffer from angina.
Any medication you take?
Nitroglycerin. Plavix.
Do you have any significant drug allergy?
Septra.
Then the health summary for triage or intake is performed and ready to share, spoken here in Korean.
내 문제는 오른쪽 무릎에 심한 통증이 있고 절뚝거리고 있다는 것입니다. 나는 협심증으로 고통받는다. 제가 복용하는 약은
I have pain in my right knee. I have angina. I am taking Nicerine and glycerin. And these are the list of medication you can take. Plavix, clopidogrel. This is the list of equivalent medications you can use here. I have allergy to Ceftran, sulfamethoxazole, Primeturi.
Indeed, we have seen that AI can be transformative to address patient safety issues during this foreign patient hospital journey, especially for intake and discharge and follow-up care. To err is indeed human. I think that's why physicians like me and my co-panelists went into healthcare IT to make a difference. We are impatient, so that is why we are using our modern technology tool to make a difference at a large scale. And I want to thank you very much for having invited me on this panel. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your wonderful presentation. And ladies and gentlemen, this brings us to the end of all of our 6 presentations, but we'll soon begin a panel discussion. So we will now set some tables and chairs on the stage for this panel discussion. So we had 6 presentations today at this forum. Forum 1, the first presenter was Dr. Eric Lee, and he provided valuable insights into how AI can be implemented in primary healthcare, both innovative and ethical ways. So that was a really meaningful presentation. And presentation number 2 was delivered by Professor Lee Sang-yeol. So Professor Lee just focused on how digital healthcare and AI technologies can be used to improve the quality of life for diabetes patients. And third presentation was a video presentation delivered by Dr. Daniel Kraft, and it was an insightful presentation on the rapidly advancing technologies in the medical and biomedical fields and their potentials as well. And the fourth presentation, we had a chance to listen from Professor Chung, and that Professor Chung's presentation highlighted the potential changes in future healthcare brought by quantum computing in the field of life sciences and healthcare. Our presentation number 5 by Professor Dr. Chung was a meaningful presentation that allowed us to reflect on the innovations of large language models. And we had the last presentation delivered by Ms. Experton, and that presentation just focused on how Humetrix AI-based global healthcare communicator is working. So thank you once again to all of our esteemed speakers. And now we're ready to welcome our moderator and esteemed panel to the stage once again. In this session, we'd like to welcome Professor Chung Jae-ho as a moderator. Please come up to the stage and let's welcome him. And we will welcoming 3 esteemed panels. Dr. Eric Lee, we'd like to welcome you back to the stage. And Dr. Chung Myung-jin, please come once again and be seated on the stage. Last but not least, Dr. Venita Experton, we'd like to have you once again to the stage. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome them once again with a huge round of applause. Please, you may have the floor.
Thank you. So since we heard each speaker's presentation, and it's a very diverse areas of personalized healthcare enabled by AI, from AI-based personalization and specific disease daily application, and innovative AI hospital system and digital medicine, and quantum computing and the large language model, and the patient safety concerned AI technology. I just want to request each speakers here about what is the current status of AI-enabled personalized healthcare, and what hurdles we should overcome to fully implement personalized healthcare in near future. So, Eric, you go first, please.
Okay. Hi, everyone. So remember, I spoke briefly about tools in use today, like ambient clinical voice. And because there's so many different vendors, I believe the experience to be varied from the testimonials that I've heard. It is helpful. It is extremely helpful so far. But there are certainly opportunities in which it can be better integrated into the electronic health record. It can hear the conversation and tee up the orders like I had mentioned. It could actually code a little bit more accurately. There's more opportunities for it to integrate deeper into the health record and help with, I believe that would help with more adoption or increased adoption. Right now in our country, there are a lot of major health systems or academic medical centers that are employing this. But the reality is there's still a significant portion of providers and physicians in smaller practices or solo practice that are not able to afford to use this, or they're not able to have it integrated into our electronic health record system. So there's still a substantial opportunity as well. I think that philosophy applies to a lot of other tools there too. I mean, there's, physicians or providers will get a lot of email or secure messages to the electronic health record from patients. Can I get a medication refill? Can you help me with these symptoms? I'm still experiencing pain. And we're able to use generative AI to draft a response. But we're still at this point where maybe a fifth of the responses are actually considered acceptable or appropriate at first blush. So I think there's an issue there in that even though you may prompt the large language model, hey, you need to sound this, you need to make the responses shorter, or this doesn't sound like me. Look at my prior responses and make it sound more like me. I think there's a lot of learning that still has to happen. So I think there's a substantial amount of opportunity still left to be obtained. I mean, I think my colleagues will have different opinions, which is why we're meeting in the first place.
Okay, so each speaker can address like the technological issues or the healthcare policy issues where it applies, because like for example, some country actually banned assisted by the kind of technology like AI in terms of clinical practice, for example. So again, my request to you is that the current status of each speaker's subject area, and then what problems or what hurdles should we overcome to fully implement the precision medicine. Yeah, please, Professor Chung.
It is very difficult that about personalized healthcare. I have an interest about patient life flow data. For example, the discharged patient can record the patient reported outcome for a long time, and we clinicians can use the patient PRO data in hospital. However, that is not yet commonly used, not yet. So meaningfully, I can think that PRO can be very helpful for the patient care, but we can prove the data evidence of the result. In same scenario is for the wearable data. I think that the patient wearable data collection will be useful for the clinician, especially in case of hypertension or diabetics. We can use their exercise data or sleep data can be useful. However, not yet we cannot the evidence of the collected data. So I want to collect their data for the long time prospectively.
So I agree with you that AI has to be integrated in those EHRs to be used on a large scale, and they are for those administrative purposes. So they are already used by those large electronic medical record system. The issues, I think, to have AI used at scale, there will be issues of cost, and I think AI has to be used judiciously. And they are an assistant tools. They can be extremely helpful, but a provider should not make a query every 5 minutes because that will be prohibitive. And so again, I think physician, clinician have to be there to guide the implementation of those tools to be effective. interestingly, as they optimally have to be integrated in EHRs, back to our experience at the Olympics, it was this summer when there was a major disruption, if you recall, of Microsoft-based system. And the EMR in that large hospital system in Paris was paralyzed, couldn't be used at all. And unlike our point-of-care edge computing solution, which were not system-based, embedded in those UHR, was a very effective, not replacement tool, but useful tool in that context as well. Just a few thoughts.
Okay, to Bettina. So it sounds like a little bit sensitive question, but in terms of malpractice related to the AI-based translator, if it happens, then what kind of legal liability should be, who actually responsible for that kind of malpractice occurred around using the kind of AI-driven translator platform?
I think the key is to prevent that liability situation to occur in the first place. So AI has to be applied and used after it is curated by clinicians. I mentioned in my presentation, for instance, that we don't use Gen AI to translate medication. You will get errors, if not hallucination. This is AI in the generic way. We use algorithm-driven code base to look for this specific medication with the same active ingredient in the same form, in the same dosage form, than the medication that an individual patient is taking in that instance. So again, that's where you differentiate and you discriminate the use of Gen AI to the use of algorithm-based computation to conduct more precise, to render your processes and clinically correct. So that's what I believe, that clinicians have to be in the loop, even at the conception of those systems, all the way to the implementation. In my company, we have as many clinicians who are all healthcare informaticists than we have engineers. So we try to respond to real needs with solutions which can be clinically validated and responsible.
Okay, can I ask you the same question to Eric? So the legal liability around the AI-enabled healthcare devices, or the kind of environment you provide the healthcare to the patient, and some kind of malpractice happens, and who should be responsible for that event? Actually, it is a kind of reminiscence of AI-driven driving. Like, if car accident happens, it's a technology company or the who is responsible for that?
So I agree with Dr. Bettina. You need to prevent it. But I'm also going to take a flip side of, when you look at the output of generative AI, the accuracy is overall better than what a human could do over time. So if you look at self-driving vehicles, for example, as it's gotten refined over time, right, the incidence of accidents as opposed to human driving errors will be less than that. So are you going to blame the technology because we're always expecting the technology, we're always going to look at the flaws or the defects or the issues with the technology, when in fact overall it might actually perform better over time? So when you're talking about liability related to like interpretation, for example, right? So if I use a generative AI interpretation and 99.7% of the time it's going to be better than what a human could have done, or if a human decides to use Google Translate to try and translate instead of actually using a generative AI platform with a higher accuracy rate, are you blaming the human? Or are you blaming the technology? Really, it should be, use it responsibly. There always needs to be human in the loop. If you're in a self-driving vehicle, I mean, preferably you should be able to intervene or take over when necessary. If you're looking at generative AI translated or interpreted content, you should be able to still look at it and inspect it for its accuracy.
Right. So I absolutely I agree with your opinion, but I think the thing is the public perception of a new and emerging technology. So as you mentioned, the human error is actually nothing better than that of the new technology, but still the public perception is it's partly due to the higher expectation than the human what human performs. But anyhow, the preventive measure should come first, right? Okay, so the other thing is actually I presented the potential of quantum computing. One of the reasons is that actually quantum computing is the different paradigm of calculation and computation. So it cannot be compared with classical computer head-to-head. But on top of that, the reason I brought up the quantum computing issue in AI-centric, AI-driven healthcare is because the electric power usage. So imagine if the AI, like Jensen Huang once mentioned in the CES this year, that AI evolves toward agent AI and physical AI. Physical AI means AI plus robotics. Then they have to calculate in real time, consuming a lot of electric powers. So this is actually related to the issue of the energy crisis, then the climate change, and the environmental change. Then it also affects the human health. It's a kind of loop. We just cannot simply set aside the AI from this kind of interrelated loop of health and ecosystem. So with that, my question is, if AI is prevail in our daily lives, then have you ever thought about the energy issues related to the use of AI in our daily healthcare issues? Who pay for that? And actually, it is actually up to the consumer. They have to pay the electric charge for the use of AI. So it's just kind of a thought, but I think beyond this topic of AI-driven daily healthcare, but we should think first because our ecosystem is related to our human being health. Any thoughts? But just freely express your opinions on that.
Actually, AI don't use too much electrical power, or not only for the training, such as the making foundation model. They can use the many electronic use, but in inference in edge computing system, there is not much electrical uses.
Okay.
You bring up a really interesting point, and I think it's not publicized or well known enough. From my limited reading on the subject, I see there's this unknown or like unwritten competition that's happening for land in very sparsely populated areas, and they're trying to build solar panel like power farms and wind farms, and they're just consuming large amounts of this undeveloped land just for power, just to create power, to then power these supercomputing, quantum computing engines and farms underneath the ground and whatnot. There's as we become more and more dependent on this, I think this is going to be an issue that's going to be accentuated even more so in the next couple of years. I think in the next 5 to 10 years, I think there is going to be an energy crisis, and it's going to come back to you can't just create enough power with oil and coal. You really need to start leaning more into this alternative energy. And frankly, in the United States, there's large continents, there's a lot of undeveloped land that still has yet to be used. So I think figuring out how you're going to lean into that and then create that additional power that the world will need will become the next set of like problems that the world will be facing.
Right. So at the same time, we have to develop AI technology further an advanced state, because even the less parameters we can perform the same performance. This is related to the AI technology. So for example, the ChatGPT 3.5, they have almost 1,700 billion parameters, right? The training requires a lot of electrical powers, almost, but the thing is, as AI technology evolves, then we need less parameter. That means we can consume less electricity, as Professor Zhang mentioned. So, Bettina, do you have any thought on that?
I mean, in our own use, we were purposefully diligent about using least computing powers needed. So if we had to pre-compute, some processes, we'll do it in advance. So it's not done, we can deliver in real time the answer we need, but it has been pre-computed. So we took care of that. But yeah, I see how in healthcare AI could be misused from an energy consumption viewpoint. If at this point it's heavily used now for administrative purposes because you have staff shortage, and so the machine is stepping in to play the role of humans who are not there. But if that remaining human is using in excess the machine at a higher cost, then that human may be asked to see more of those patients, and the cost of that additional patient care will have to be paid by someone. So I think we are in the infancy of the use of AI, even if it's already there, for instance, for use of administrative purposes, and we will be forced to look at the energy consumption and be more rational about our use of it.
Thank you. So it is very hard for me at this moment to imagine the future of healthcare, because the clinicians and the healthcare caregivers and healthcare providers, the number will obviously decrease as time goes by. Then the technologies like AI and physical AI. Do you envision that in near soon, or what time frame the physical AI, like a robotic doctor, can provide more accurate, precise healthcare than the human doctors? Because we already discussed a little bit of that, because the human error, actually AI error is less than the human error, right? In some aspects of clinical care. So in that sense, the human doctor should ban their job, and replace with the more highly smarter, less error-prone AI should replace the human doctors in terms of providing healthcare, if law allows. What do you think?
And I think one of the interest of technology all the way to AI today is that you can also transform healthcare at the individual level, at the patient side. I love your expression that computation is a new stethoscope, but you can put that digital health tool in the hands of millions before they seek healthcare. So they acquire knowledge, they have the tool maybe to understand what they are feeling, and maybe some of guidance on how to better care for themselves. They may be, and the physician will become this last step in that care journey, which starts at home along the way every day, using those digital tools. So I cannot predict the future either, but I think we are evolving in that direction where you have patients who are more informed, they have tools at their fingertips, on their mobile phone, on themselves, and the doctors is at that last stage, that technical, enable educated professional who can provide that sick care we talked about, whereas that preventive care and ongoing care is maybe done at the patient level with those digital tools.
What do you think, Eric?
I would say it's not going to replace humans, but I'll also qualify that by saying never say never. So I believe IBM tried to develop Watson, right? And everyone, this was what, 15, 20 years ago, saying, oh, Watson's going to replace doctors, and we're going to be able to develop this at scale and replace physicians. And it never ended up happening, right? It won Jeopardy. It could beat humans at Jeopardy because you can cram large amounts of information, and when you're just asking a single question, it's going to be able to find that fact and recall and beat the human being at one-on-one. But when you're talking about the human condition and having to synthesize and put together a whole bunch of different symptoms that may or may not follow the classic definition or the rare presentation of an illness or a chronic disease or an acute condition, you'd have to have this large language model that is capable of prompting itself again and again and again and again to steer it toward, like a human would, eventually in getting to the right diagnosis. And it's not there yet. And so that's why I say never. Could it happen? It feasibly could, but I think it's supposed to just help humans work smarter. And then I believe, there has to be ways to look at patients, get them to be more proactive in their care, and it has to be really easy for them to use. I download an app, I know immediately how to use it, I don't have to use an instruction manual. The same thing of just becoming this self-service or this your own agent in your care, it has to be that intuitive to be able to do that, and then that makes the shortage of providers and clinicians a little bit more easier to handle.
Okay. Professor Chang?
I agree to the same idea that, as in my presentation, even LLM can more accurate than clinicians. The final decision should be held by clinician itself, because even the accuracy is higher in AI than human. The 1 million risk is done by AI. Who can in charge? So in that time, the clinician should decide the final decision and final procedure. So even the physical AI can support caregivers. The final supervision should be done by human.
Okay, thank you. So because the time's up, so I would like to wrap this panel discussion. So it is obvious that AI is going to revolutionize precision and personalized healthcare, but at the same time, as we discussed, there are a lot of issues and the challenges that we have to overcome to fully implement and realize the precision medicine, and the benefits should go all. So there are a lot of issues, like how technology should evolve and which direction, and how smartly we utilize the technology as a toolkit instead of a kind of replacing item for human healthcare providers, and obviously kind of legal liability using AI-driven healthcare, a lot of things, but there is no firm answer yet. But altogether, we have to tackle this issue globally, locally, and internationally. So with that, I would like to wrap up and finish this panel discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And before we invite you back to your seat, we'd like to ask you to please come forward and join this photo shoot briefly. We'd like to welcome our moderator and panelists. And ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for staying with us until the very last moment. And we will briefly take a group photo shoot with our esteemed speakers. So please bear with us. Please make a huge smile towards the camera. Once again, that's cheer up. Please use your right arm. Thank you. Please now return to your seats. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, please give a huge round of applause to our moderator and panelists. Thank you very much. And this brings us to the end of Forum 1. And we had a chance to learn and explore the evolving landscape of AI-powered personalized healthcare and its transformative potential in the global healthcare industry. Ladies and gentlemen, we do have one important announcement about our on-site participants event. A STEM tour event is currently ongoing for on-site participants. So you can receive your stamp in front of the entrance of room number 201. So please be sure to participate. Thank you once again for your participation. And we do have some more programs and forums prepared for you tomorrow on March 21st. So ladies and gentlemen, please show your ongoing participation and interest as well. Thank you and see you tomorrow as well. Thank you and goodbye. 네, 여러분 내일도 많은 프로그램 준비되어 있으니 꼭 참여해 주시기 바랍니다. 조심히 돌아가십시오. 고맙습니다.